Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Aurora's Committee of Adjustment meeting. I will start by introducing the committee members and staff. I am the committee chair. My name is Tom Plamondon, and the remaining members are as follows. Daniel Lajeunesse is the vice chair, Steve D'Angeli, Linda Duringer, and David Mango round out the team of members of the committee. The secretary treasurer is Prashanthi Manoharan, and the planner this evening is Stephen Core. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you.
We are also joined by the council committee secretary, who is Linda Bottas, and the manager of development planning is Anna Enriquez. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded. It is also being conducted virtually through the use of Zoom technology. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded in accordance with the Municipal Act and the Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including on the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight are available on the Town of Aurora website and through the staff at the town's planning department. Should you wish to receive notification of any of these decisions for tonight's meeting, please complete the appropriate form available through town staff. Owners and agents will automatically be notified. For each application that will be considered tonight, the following process will occur. I will briefly outline the purpose of the application or applications, and then the applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It is the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information as received. Presentations and deputations are limited to 5 minutes as much as possible. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I will invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address and must provide this information to the secretary treasurer. Should you wish to obtain a copy of the notice of decision, please complete the appropriate form, again available through the secretary treasurer. Members of the public are reminded that text comments are not permitted during the meeting, and they would not be taken into consideration in any manner at any time. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, no further presentations shall be made. If you require any technical assistance with your presentation, please let me know. If you wish to speak and are currently following this feed on YouTube, you will need to turn this feed off and join the meeting live, as there is about a 2-minute lag between the YouTube feed and the live feed. Please ensure that all questions and or comments are directed through me as the chair. And if relevant, I will request the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any question or comment should the committee feel that it is appropriate. So we will now start tonight's meeting. And agendas have been circulated. And again, item 1 on the agenda, I'll just repeat the procedural note that this meeting is being held electronically as per section 19.I of the town's procedural bylaw, number 6228-19 as amended. Again, it's due to the COVID-19 situation, and it is being live streamed. I'll look to the members of the committee for approval of the agenda for this evening. Linda, you'll need to turn your audio on, please.
I move that we approve the minutes from the agenda of October 14th.
We're looking to approve the agenda for tonight, just the
Oh, for
agenda.
tonight. Oh, not the previous agenda, the tonight's agenda. Well, I move that we approve the agenda for November 11th, 2021.
Thank you very much. Seconder, please. Daniel, thank you very much. All in favor? Agenda, yeah, okay. I'll ask members of the committee if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Lots of heads shaking no, so we're good on that. Thank you very much. And now we'll deal with the receipt of the minutes. And this is for our last meeting, and that is the Committee of Adjustment minutes of October the 14th. And that's meeting number 21-10. Again, I'll look to committee for approval of the minutes. Please, David, go right ahead.
Through the chair, I move that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment minutes of October 14, 2021, meeting number 21-10 be approved.
Thank you very much. I'll look for a seconder, please. Stephen, thank you very much. And all in favor of the minutes as circulated. And that carries. Thank you very much. So we're moving now through to the presentation of applications. So the first item on the agenda this evening is minor variance 2021-30 for our, I believe the name is Sudat at 130 Edward Street. We have a request from the applicant to defer this item to a future meeting. So I'll look to the committee for a motion to defer to a future meeting, please. I see Daniel's hand up there. Please, Daniel, go right ahead.
Through the chair, I move that application MV-2021-30 for 130 Edward Street be deferred as per requested by the applicant.
Thank you very much. Seconder, please. Linda, yes, thank you. That's seconded. And all in favor of the request to defer. And that carries. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda. This is a consent application for 2419059 Ontario Inc. at 497 Wellington. This is consent file number 2021-10. There are two related files, ZBA 2014-07 and SP 2015-01. So we've got a zoning bylaw application and a site plan application for this item. The purpose of the proposed consent application is to sever the subject lands municipally known as 497 Wellington Street West to facilitate the creation of 11 lots and a private condominium road. The applicant is requesting a provisional consent to sever and create the 11 parcels shown on the submitted draft reference plan. So this proposal is requesting provisional consent to approve the sever and create 11 lots. These are residential lots and a private condominium road on the subject lands. And that is shown on the Appendix A as included in our circulation package. Staff note that the severance plan also shows Part 13, which is a 205.7 square meter parcel of land to widen the Wellington Street West right of way. And we've been informed that this parcel has already been conveyed to the region of York. So the proposed development has been reviewed as part of a site plan application submitted to the town. An agreement has been drafted. However, it has not been finalized as yet. and that is as of the drafting of the report. Staff recommend, as a condition of approval, should the committee approve the consent application, that the owner execute a site plan agreement with the town. Submitted to the town, an agreement has been drafted. However, so I believe we are being joined by someone who is following us on YouTube. So I'll ask the individual, if they are following on YouTube, to switch to the live feed and audio as well. Thank you. So as I was stating, there is history on this particular application, including a series of zoning processes, including review by LPAT and the Ontario Municipal Board. So the consent application, which was originally approved by the Committee of Adjustment on September the 14th, 2017, to permit the same proposal as is the current application, the approval decision included several conditions to be satisfied prior to the registration of the consent. The applicant failed to satisfy the conditions within the 1-year period required by Section 53 brackets 41 of the Planning Act. So this is why this is coming back to the committee this evening. With regards to the official plan, the property is located in the stable neighborhood designation and permits ground-related residential uses, including detached, semi-detached, and townhouse residential dwelling units. The southwest corner of the property is designated environmental protection by the official plan. Preliminary zoning was conducted, and planning comments relate to matters of provincial interest, conformity with the official plan and adjacent plans of subdivision, suitability of the land for the purpose in which it is intended to be subdivided, the dimension and shape of the proposed lots, adequacy of utilities and municipal servicing, and number and adequacy of highways. So staff are of the opinion that the proposed consent application conforms to the provincial policy framework, including the Provincial Policy Statement of Places to Grow Act. Further, the proposed development conforms to the Region of York and Town of Aurora official plan and is permitted by zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended, including compliance with the minimum lot area and frontages contemplated by the consent application. As a condition of approval, staff are recommending that the site plan agreement be executed to ensure that technical studies and plans are fully accepted by the town and external agencies, as well as ensuring any securities or financial obligations are satisfied. Staff are also recommending that this consent approval be subject to conditions recommended by Engineering Division, Region of York, and Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority as outlined in additional comments received below in the report. So the additional comments are Building Division, preliminary zoning review was completed on August the 19th, 2021, stating that the proposed 11 detached dwelling units as indicated on the drawings comply with the requirements of zoning bylaw 6000-17. Second, that the subject property is located within the generic regulations of the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. Therefore, an approval from the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority is required prior to the issuance of building permits, and tree removal shall be in accordance with the town of Aurora tree bylaw number 5850-16. With regards to engineering division, that the owner enter into a site plan agreement with the town, which shall A, provide all required engineering detailed design plans and reports to the Director of Planning and Development to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Development Services. Further, provide any documentation requested by the Director of Planning and Development Services to the Director's satisfaction. As well, include any other obligation to the town, financial or otherwise, including but not limited to engineering fees and securities, and it is to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Development Services. Transportation had no comments. Operational services reviewed the documentation for the property associated with the above noted application and have no formal comments, as these are being addressed through site plan. Operational services, no comments were received at the time of the writing of the report. Accessibility, no comments on the application. Central York Fire, no comments or concerns with the subject property. York Region has completed its review of the above application and site servicing plan located in associated file, and that's the site plan, and that was prepared by MGM Consulting and dated the 29th of September 2016. There are specific comments with regards to water and wastewater servicing, as well as proximity to regional infrastructure. And that's basically protecting the integrity of the 900 millimeter water main on Wellington Street, which are in close proximity north of development, and that shall be protected at all times. And I believe that Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority commented, and there was a recommendation included in their comments, and it's based on their review of the submitted information in support of the application. It is determined that the proposal is generally consistent in conformity with the natural heritage and natural hazard policies of the applicable provincial and regional plans and electric utilities. No comments. I'll just also finally note that 2 written submissions were received at the time of the writing of the report. One was provided by an area resident in support from 108 Timpson. The other is from an area resident at 207 Wellington Street, citing again concerns with regards to the proximity of homes. I'll ask if so in conclusion, staff have reviewed the application with respect to section 51 brackets 24 of the Planning Act, as well as the provincial policy statement, provincial plans, and the town's official plan, and are satisfied with the proposed consent application subject to conditions. So with that, I'll ask if the owner, applicant, or agent is with us this evening and wishes to make a presentation. And I'll ask him to turn his audio on, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jack Dugan. I'm the planner agent for the owner, and I submitted the application. I'd like to make a very brief presentation. Your overview was very, very thorough and covered almost everything that I would have said. I would like to point out that in approving the zoning bylaw and the site plan applications in principle, the Ontario Municipal Board has basically locked in the configuration of the development of the site. I understand that there have been concerns raised by some of the neighbors, that you have 2 letters, one in support of and one that has raised some concerns. And there may be other concerns that would express verbally to your staff. I don't know if we're going to get a chance to hear any of those tonight. but there's a couple of points they would like to make in that regard. The design of the site layout evolved over quite a period of time and was based on many considerations, in particular minutes of settlement with the town that arose out of the appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board. In addition, the provincial policy statement requirements for intensification and of residential development and for transit supportive planning explains why the houses are closer to Wellington Street than our neighbors, in particular the neighbor to the east, would prefer. The preservation of the valley slope and existing trees explains why the stormwater runoff from that portion of the site above the top of bank is contained by swales and drains to the storm sewer on Wellington Street, but the runoff on the valley slope has been maintained to protect the trees. And that, of course, is one of the concerns that was raised by one of the neighbors from the very beginning, even prior to the Ontario Municipal Board decision. York Region Transportation concern for the location and design of the entry driveway explains why the garage for lot 11 is located on the south side of the house, as far from Wellington Street entrance as possible. Concerns expressed at the time of the OMB approval by the neighbors explains why the house on lot 9 is set back 3 meters from the east property line, more than double what is normally required, and has no side windows. I've prepared a cross section through the east property line, which shows the houses, the row of existing pine trees along that line, which are to be retained and supplemented, and the embankment along that property line between this site and the existing house on 211 Wellington Street. And I think that cross-section shows quite clearly that everything that can be done to mitigate the effect of these townhouses or these new houses on the existing house has been done. In addition, flipping the house on lot 11, which was suggested by the neighbor, would not normally be a problem. However, in this case, we would expect an objection from York Region due to the proximity of the house's driveway to the site entrance. The transportation departments of most municipalities would insist that the driveway be placed on the side of the house away from the arterial road rather than the side adjacent to the arterial road. In summary, I think this layout has been prepared thoughtfully and in consideration of its neighbors, and is the best that can be achieved within the parameters of the Ontario Municipal Board approval of the zoning and site plan applications. There is one other thing I'd like to ask, and that is for your consideration with respect to the application fees. For the original application, my client paid a base fee and an additional fee for each of the 11 lots that are to be created, for a total of $21,695. Quite an exceptional amount for a consent application. This new application is identical to the one that was approved and required very little additional review. We therefore ask you to consider accepting the base fee of $4,408 for this new application, but waive the $2,214 fee for each additional lot to be created, as the review of the additional lots has already been done and paid for. I thank you for allowing me to make this presentation. If you're pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate answering some of the questions that we have had from members of the public over the last number of days. So I believe, Prashanthi, we do have members of the public that do wish to address the committee. So with that, I'll ask you, Prashanthi, to bring those individuals forward. And I may not be able to see them here on my screen because I'm limited to the number of people here that I can view at any one given time. So if I use the list that I have here in front of me that was provided by staff, is Mr. Doug Bushy with us this evening? And if he wishes to address the committee, please come forward.
Through the chair, in support of your comment regarding the number of screens, there was an individual that popped in for about 5 seconds, and then it looks as though he dropped. So that might be the individual you're referring to.
Yeah, the name on his square did say Doug.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I do have two other registered delegates.
Doug is
Isn't-
back.
Oh,
Doug is back.
is he back? So Mr. Bushy, if you are with us then and wish to address the committee, please feel free.
He's on mute right now. You
So
might
just-
want to unmute his button, and his screen is, his video is off as well.
So Mr. Bushy, if you can hear me or if you can hear us, your screen is there, but we don't see you and we don't hear you. So if you could join us that way, that would be great.
Okay. You hear me now?
Yes, and there you are. Now I can see you as well. So
Okay.
Mr. Bushy, the floor is yours. I'd ask that you identify yourself and you give us your address, please.
Yeah, Doug Bushy, 207 Wellington Street West, Aurora.
Welcome, sir. Right ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I got about 6 points I want to make. First off, I still think this is too many houses for this area being crammed onto that. But one of the points I want to make is that along Wellington Street West here, all of the homes are set back from Wellington Street by a significant amount. These homes are going to be basically on the sidewalk, you know, really close to it. And that you know, kind of goes along with what Jack wanted to do with the garages not being able to be switched because it's so close to the sidewalk and Wellington Street. That's because the homes are so close to Wellington and they're filling up the entire lot there. I would have preferred it to be set back a bit so that there's a bit more of a open space. My concern about lot 10 and 11 as they are, the main part of the house, which is a 2-story house with a very steep roof, which translates into about a 3-story home height-wise. You add that to the elevation that they are much higher than the homes along 207, 211, and along Timpson that can see those homes being, that are going to be built. It would have been better to have that lowered a bit so it's a little closer to our elevation. They're still going to tower over us anyway. The 2 homes most impacted is mine at 207 and my neighbor at 211, which is right beside them. The main part of the house is going to be entirely in front of his garage. So when he walks out, he's got nothing but house that right there blocking his view. I think, you know, a couple of those things could be mitigated. Set it back a bit. I don't know, switch around the lot 10 and 11 like I indicated in my submission, because this definitely impacts our quality of life. There's no getting around that at all. You know, the builder's going to make a ton of money and leave, and then we have to live in the area. So, you know, I see some things that really should be reconsidered. Lower the number of homes, set them back a bit, lower the elevation a bit where it's going to impact our walking out into our front yards, and all of a sudden these, you know, huge houses towering over us. And I think it has a safety issue with us too, and driving out on our driveways onto Wellington with you know, block views and so on. It makes it a little less safe for us getting in and out of our homes. So I really think it should be taken a look at really closely and maybe consider switching the homes, lowering some of the elevation where it's going to make a big impact on the quality of life of me and my neighbor. Neighbor on Timpson to the right of me will be impacted as well. You know, we're not just about making money for builders. We're building a community here, and everyone has to, you know, be happy with their community. I've been here 34 and a half years now, and this is probably the biggest concern I've seen to my neighborhood. I hope you really give it a lot of thought here, and try to make it a little more bearable for the current community and the current residents, because I think this is going to make our life a lot worse. No question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bushy. Appreciate your comments, and I did take note of the correspondence as the other members of the committee did when we saw that as part of the package. And as I alluded at the onset, this file does have an extensive history to it. Unfortunately, at this point, we are not in a position, I don't believe, to to impose zoning restrictions on what appears to be a site plan that meets the requirements of the zoning that is currently in force. But that's just an initial comment from me on that. Mr. Dugan, I'll let you, I think you've covered it off already, but I'll give you an opportunity here if you wish to make a comment on the comments that were made by Mr. Bushy at this point, if you have any. And as I said, I think you've already addressed that, but give you the opportunity here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is one point that I'd like to make, and that is that row of trees that I spoke of earlier. It's a row of Scots pines that are somewhere between 30 and 40 feet high. If we could look at the aerial photo, which Prashanti has with her, we could see that row of trees along the east property line. You can see the site outlined in black. You see the house to the right, which is number 211, and Mr. Bushy's house, 207, to the right of that. Along that east property line, there's this row of very tall Scots pines. We've taken extraordinary efforts to keep those trees. There is one little gap in the trees that will be filled in with new planting, and there will be a new fence along that property line. So I think we've done a fairly reasonable job of trying to create a separation between this property and those two residences. The properties to the west, of course, this property and the properties to the west were all rural residential from a time, 50, 60, 70 years ago, that is no longer consistent with provincial policy. And I think that is why the Ontario Municipal Board agreed to the intensification of development on this property.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Duggan. So,
can I respond to that as well?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on with other delegations, and we may be able to come back to that. If Mr. Chen is with us this evening, I'll ask Prashanti, is Mr. Chen with us?
Through you, we do, Mr. Chen's name did pop up, but it seems that they have left. So I followed up with them, but in the meantime, I think we can take Ms. Ryan's delegation.
All right, yeah, let's move to, it's Janice Ryan, and we'll give you the floor. Ms. Ryan, just to give us your name and your address for the record, please.
She's still on mute.
Through
right
the
now.
chair, Janice
Through the chair.
was connecting while you were doing your introduction. So it is quite possible Janice did not hear, but
There she is. She's there now.
Okay. So Ms. Ryan, if you can turn your mic on and the floor is yours. We'll just ask you again to identify yourself and give us your address, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name's Janice Ryan. I live at 19 Dinsmore Terrace.
Through the chair, Janice was connecting while you were doing your introduction.
I apologize.
So it is quite possible Janice did not hear, but it's okay, Ms. Ryan, just go right ahead. It's we're catching up with ourselves here because there's a delay in the feed. So please just go right ahead. Floor is yours. We'll just ask you again to identify yourself and give us your address, please.
Sorry for that mix-up. I'm Janice Ryan. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name's Janice Ryan. I live at 19 Dinsmore Terrace.
Through the chair, Janice was connecting while you were doing your introduction.
I apologize.
So it's quite possible Janice did not hear, but it's okay, Ms. Ryan, just go right ahead. It's we're catching up with ourselves here
Okay.
because there's a delay in the feed. So please just go right ahead.
Do I have to turn anything off to avoid the delay?
Yeah.
Sorry for that mix-up. I'm Janice Ryan. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name's Janice Ryan. I live at 19 Dinsmore Terrace.
Through the chair, Janice was connecting while you were doing your introduction.
I apologize.
It's okay, Ms. Ryan, just go right ahead. It's catching up with ourselves here
Okay.
because there's a delay in the feed. So please just go right ahead.
Do I have to turn anything off to avoid the delay? Sorry for that mix-up. I'm Janice Ryan. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name's Janice Ryan. I live at 19 Dinsmore Terrace.
Through the chair, Janice was connecting while you were doing your introduction.
I apologize. Sorry, can I do anything to avoid the delay?
Hi, Janice. I'm just wondering if you have your YouTube feed open anywhere.
What?
Your the YouTube, do you have it playing anywhere? It's to open another tab or anything like that. But if you do, just please, you can just close out of it, just because I think that's where we're getting the feedback.
Just one sec. Sorry, can I do anything to avoid the delay?
I think you're good now.
So I have no visual screen. Is that okay?
through the chair, it sounds as though you were watching the YouTube feed as opposed to your Zoom feed.
I addressed it through Zoom, but yes, it was YouTube. Am I connected now and shall I proceed?
You are crystal clear. Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm Janice Ryan. I live at 19 Dinsmore Terrace in Aurora. More than 60% of the southern property line of 497 Wellington Street West and a small portion of its eastern property line abut our property. The application for the development of 497 caused great concern to the neighbors in the area. The property is substantially higher than those to the east and immediately south of it, and originally had one small bungalow located on it far away from any property line. At issues were the increased density of the buildings in this old stable neighborhood of large lots, the loss of privacy with 10-meter high houses close to property lines overlooking existing homes to the east, increased drainage issues where such issues have already been a problem, and additional loss of privacy currently provided by existing trees and bushes that will be lost during construction. When creating the minutes of settlement with the developer of 497 for the OMB appeals hearing, The negotiator for the town worked hard to have numerous provisions and safeguards in place to ameliorate the impact of this development on its neighbors. Bruce Ketchison, the lawyer representing the town of Aurora, stated that the site plan conditions and drawings include provisions for provision of landscaping with emphasis on the position of landscape screening along with the easterly boundary of the property. The agreed upon minutes of settlement contains 40 site plan conditions required to be met to receive approval for this dense development. 10 of these relate to parks and recreation services. Many cover requirements regarding landscape design plans and their execution, tree preservation, expert supervision, and post-construction maintenance. It was not intended for the division of this lot to be approved without these conditions being met. When this same development proposal was approved by the Committee of Adjustment in September of 2017, it was with 5 pages of conditions to be satisfied prior to the registration of the consent. As per the Committee of Adjustment report, the applicant failed to satisfy the conditions within the 1-year period required, and the consent approval lapsed. The conditions were stipulated to address the concerns of the citizens of Aurora and were made a requirement for approval. The failure of the applicant to meet these conditions previously should not negate the need for the conditions to be met to gain approval now. I ask that the approval of this application not be issued without being contingent on the original conditions stipulated. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I have no sound or view of you, so I do not know what is being said.
Through the chair, Tom, you're muted, but I think you know that.
Was my comments heard?
Through
Anyway,
the, through the,
You're good, Janice. We're just getting the chair to get his microphone and he'll be speaking with you in a second or two, okay? So we'll just hold on for,
Thank you, Linda.
no problem.
There we go. For some reason, I think I was muted by staff. So, okay. Yes, Ms. Ryan, everything that you said was heard, and we also saw you. So thank you for your comments. And I'll just remind you that there are conditions that are associated with the site plan approval process. And there are conditions associated with the approval of the consent to sever. Those two are independent of one another, and all of the conditions that are associated with the site plan application have to be satisfied through that process. All of the conditions associated with the consent application are stipulated in Appendix C, which is part of the staff report. And a lot of those conditions may in fact overlap with the site plan to one extent or another, being agencies that are being circulated that are also mentioned in this series of conditions, as well as I said, the actual site plan application itself. So again, I'll just ask, or I'll just go to the applicant and ask if he has any comments that he wishes to make to Ms. Ryan on her concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I can agree with
And again,
everything.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think I can agree with everything that Mrs. Ryan said. I believe that the conditions that she was referring to are the conditions that were written into the minutes of settlement. Those conditions have been incorporated into the draft site plan agreement. Although that site plan agreement has not been signed yet, it's still being reviewed by the town. It's just some last minute changes. Completing that agreement is one of the conditions of the consent application, as I understand it. So I think you're covering everything that Mrs. Ryan was looking for.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Prashanthi, do we have the other delegate with us at this point?
Through you, yes, they are here.
Okay, so can we allow them to come forward, please?
Completing that agreement is one of the conditions of the consent application, as I understand it. So I think you're covering everything that Mrs. Ryan was looking for. Yeah.
Through the chair, I think they also have their YouTube feed
Yes,
on.
they do. So, Ms. Chen, can you turn off your YouTube feed, please? And join us so that we don't have the same problem as we had with Janice Ryan. By the way, Ms. Ryan, that is a common issue that we deal with. The technology is new to some people, but you know, this does happen, and we're used to it. So, Ms. Chen, if you are off the YouTube feed now, we'll ask you to please go ahead. And for the record, we would need your name and your address, please.
Okay, no problem. Can you Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
please go ahead. Welcome.
Okay, so I live in 211 Wellington Street. So just like the next to the new building, like 2497 Wellington West. So the property gonna just build next to my house, actually. Yeah. So like I just moved like this area maybe around like 1 year. Yeah, and I kind of enjoy this like the community. So when I hear like they gonna, I know there's always like a sign, they say they're gonna build some like the property there. So I'm not sure when gonna happen. So when I like received like this notice, and I talked with my neighbor, and we're just thinking, yeah, like maybe we can do something to like improve, like let us feel better, like because they just like close to us, right? So yeah, so I agree with my neighbors. So if they can, I know there's like the two houses just next to us. So maybe we can do something to give us more better view, or maybe like because there's lots of woods and forest, the trees just in the property. So if we can keep some of them there, maybe it will look better. I don't know. Yeah.
So I understand your concern, and I understand that you are in agreement with the comments that were made by Janice Ryan and Doug Bushley. So, all right, thank you very much for your comments. Again, I'll go to the applicant if there's anything further that they want to say in regards to the comments that you've heard from this resident.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the development of this property is in line with the city of, or the town of Aurora's official plan, and with the provincial guidelines through the provincial policy statement. Intensification is definitely intended, and that has been approved. But having said that, we did do our best. We've kept the houses 25 feet away from that property line. We've kept the trees along that property line. We will reinforce that row of trees with some additional planting. There will be new fencing along that property line at the top of the slope. I think the situation that we've created is really quite good and is probably the best that we could have done under the circumstances.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dugan. You would have to be very brief, Mr. Bushley, because delegates and residents of the town are normally given just one opportunity to address the committee. But go right ahead. I'll give you a minute or two.
Since Crystal Chen and I both are the ones impacted the most here, this house is literally like 35 feet high, and it's on an elevated piece of ground, not as much as at the back of our property, but it's the front that concerns us most. If at least they would go to a bungalow type home on that one piece of land, that would certainly mitigate a great deal of our concerns. Having something as high as, a 2-story and in that huge angled up roof, it really is a visual piece of garbage for us. It may be great for Jack and money making for the owner of the property there, but it does nothing to enhance our lifestyle here. It takes away from us. So I think the town should at least investigate, can that become a bungalow on that lot?
So again, I'll just repeat myself, Mr. Bushley. We can't.
BUSHE.
Bushy, sorry. We can't impose at the committee here the kind of things that you're asking for. That's already been dealt through LPAT and through the Ontario Municipal Board. The applicant is not asking for any variances with regards to the height of the buildings or the type of buildings that they're asking for. With that, I'm going to ask members of the committee if they have any comments or questions to the applicant at this point, or any comments that they wish to make to any of the residents that have come before the committee. So I'll look to the committee. And Daniel, I see you've got your hand up there.
Thank you, through the chair. I'll start. I have 2 main questions for Jack, for the developer. I like to do a drive-by, then I also like to look at historical. And historically, I noted that it was being sold as a gated community. Am I correct to state that it is a 3-wall gated community, or is there any intention of gating the front as well? Why I'm asking is, will there be any traffic control to the properties? Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we had considered providing a gate on the entry driveway. There's difficulties with putting a gate on the driveway simply because the property is not large, and we've very limited space. We haven't resolved that issue yet. I don't know if it will be possible or not.
Okay. The follow-up question, and I like to put pedestrians before cars, but cars are obviously required. And from all the drafts I'm seeing, I don't see any visitor capability to these 11 properties. I see a little bit of potential parking spots along property 4, but apart from that, and maybe between 6 and 7, because you are putting grass to grass. But is there any concerns from a development point of view? And then I'll ask the town after. Sorry, there's also a little bit after the turn and before 10. So from what I'm seeing, there's possibly 6 parking spots available for these 11 buildings. From a developer point of view, is there a concern in terms of supporting guests and supporting visitors and supporting other additional vehicles that might be required for a small community as you're trying to build?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Each of the houses has a double garage, and each of the houses has space for 2 parking spaces in front of the garage. So that's 4 parking spaces per dwelling unit, which is way in excess of the town's normal requirements for detached houses. In addition to that, in order to provide for the possibility of on-street parking, the fire department required that the road be made a minimum of 8 meters wide, which is its standard for on-street parking. So there is the potential for additional visitor parking over and above the 4 parking spaces per unit that are provided. And on our site plan, we've indicated 4 parking spaces around the bend adjacent to lot 10. That would exceed the town's requirement for visitor parking if the town had a standard for visitor parking for detached houses, which of course it does not.
Okay. As much as, I guess the only comment there is, I'm always apprehensive of counting a garage for parking spaces. As much as we should put our expensive cars inside a garage and leave our rackety tools and toys outside of the garage, that is not unfortunately what we do on average. But I see what you're saying. Maybe to Stephen, if Stephen is the appropriate person to ask, can I ask, has parking considerations been looked at from a town's point of view?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Daniel, yes, they have, and I agree with what Jack had said too. It satisfies the zoning bylaw in terms of the parking requirements. There is the potential to have some accommodation of extra parking on the private lane if it was ever needed, but the dwelling units themselves are in excess of the requirements, so it satisfies the town.
I'm simply asking because I want to make sure that adjacent properties, schools, and so forth don't start being used as visitor parking if there wasn't enough parking spaces to accommodate Christmas and New Year's and New Year's Eve parties and so forth. But by the sounds of both parties, that I'm worried for nothing. So thank you. Those are the 2 main questions I had, Mr. Chair.
Obviously, Daniel is thinking well beyond the pandemic, so good. Good for you, Daniel.
And like I said, I like to put cars last in terms of considerations, but sometimes they still have to be.
Thank you for bringing those issues up and the town's response. Other members of the committee, let me go to Linda, please. Linda, go right ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a question. Those lots 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, they're very, very, very long. Were they going to be maintained as each individual lot? I can't really read, sorry, I tried to find out what's the depth of those lots, but the writing isn't very clear because it seems like they're super long. I just want to know what the actual length of those 5 lots are, and if they are super long, would there not be a possibility to do something else with the backs of them, as in a local park, that the other side of it, because there, as far as I know, from what I could see today or yesterday, there's a stream at the back of that as well, at the very back of that property, and then that other street is on the other side, and that what borders along that. I could be incorrect, couldn't get in there to really look to see that, but that's my impression. So just wondering what the size of those lots are, and could a park or something else be used in that space instead of just super long, big lots?
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sure. Go right ahead, Jack.
Okay. The stream is to the southwest. Mrs. Ryan's property is to the south. This bit of ravine doesn't abut any municipal parks. The Parks Department said it was not interested in acquiring that piece of land. The Conservation Authority said they were not interested in acquiring that piece of land. But both were very concerned that it be maintained in its natural state. And so the only solution that was available to us was to extend these lots. They're about 200 to 250 feet in depth. But a lot of that is the valley slope, which will be kept in its natural state. So yes, they have very deep lots, but that's theirs to enjoy.
It does the, and just to piggyback on that while we're talking about it, because I was going to bring it up, you've got the top of bank indicated, which is going to limit any use of the property beyond that point. Am I correct?
And not only that, but there's a 7.5 meter setback from the top of bank. And that will be restricted. I'm not sure about accessory buildings, but swimming pools specifically are not permitted in that area.
Right. Sorry, Linda, I didn't mean to jump in on that, but I thought it was an opportune time to address that. Sorry.
No, through the chair, that's fine. I was just, yeah, I was actually concerned about swimming pools and stuff. I couldn't identify that. I thought that was a crest, but I wasn't sure what the dotted line was. So anything past that dotted line that's at the back, starting lot 5 across, nothing can be built. It has to be left existing. That's for sure, right? Before anything is severed this way, because you're doing it, and that there's nothing can be built past that point.
So you, Mr. Chairman, yes, that's correct. The only possibility is lot 9
Yeah.
is so deep that there's space above the 7.5 meter setback. In fact, I think we applied a 10 meter setback on that lot in the zoning bylaw. But there is a little bit of room there. If somebody wanted a very small pool, they probably could.
Yeah.
Okay. So what the actual property would be for, say, lot 5, usable property, what would the measurement be of that? 25
feet.
By?
From the back of the house to the top of bank is 20. That's the level area. That's 25 feet. And
Yeah, so
then below that, you've got at least 150 feet of valley slope.
Right. So each house is like the frontage is going to be on that one is like 25 feet by 100 feet. Is that really what it is?
You mean the dimensions of the lot?
Yeah.
The lots are about 11 meters, about 33 feet wide, and about, I'd say somewhere close to 250 feet in depth.
But the 250 feet of depth, how much is actually usable then? That is
well,
probably just the first.
Yeah,
bit,
the
right?
front yard is just simply the depth of a car at the narrowest point. Then you've got the house, then you've got 25 feet of
Okay.
backyard, and then the top of bank.
Okay, that's fine. I'm with you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Linda. All right. So David, I can't see you, but David, have you got any comments or questions to the applicant?
Through the chair, yes, I've got some questions to the applicant. The first one, basically, is just confirmation. There is a outgo conditions in the application regarding wastewater servicing. Those are conditions from your region. I noted they are not put in the report, like at the end as one of the conditions, but I'll ask that question later on with the town staff. But for you, I know this was from what I read there, it was brought up previously. Maybe it was one of the conditions for consent. So I just wanted to know whether this condition of servicing, like you are proposing to connect to a local water main or sanitary sewer, and I believe the town is supposed to approve that proposal. So my question to you is the connection to the local water main or local sanitary sewer been approved by the town?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Yes, connections to the existing water main and the existing sewers on Wellington Street have been approved, but we still have to get allocations for water and sewer capacity from the region.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have is you are asking to waive the additional fee of $2,000 per lot. My question to you is the previous fee, which was, is it 4,000 something? Did it include this type of fee, like per lot? Like, was this type of fee already paid before? And do you think the town are asking for this one as an additional because it's a reapplication?
Mr. Chairman, the fees that were paid in 2017 had the two components, just as they do today, the base fee and then the fee for each individual lot that's to be created. And so that fee has been paid once. The review of this application was minimal because it was identical to the previous application. We're asking that the second part of the fee be waived in this case. And that's the $2,214 per house.
Okay, so can you maybe, through the chair, can I ask the town also at this time in terms of to resolve this fee thing from my case, or I can ask a separate question to the town staff? The question I wanted to ask is if this 2,000 per load, whether it's covering basically administrative fee because they have to rehandle the file and the effort and even maybe organizing this meeting, if that covers that fee or not. That's what I wanted to sort of clarification. I don't know whether Mr. Duggan can answer that, or is it the town staff, or through the chair, whether the town staff can answer later on when we're asking questions to the staff.
I think we can ask staff, first of all, at this point, staff's position with regards to the request that's being made. And I just did some quick math here. So based on the comments by Mr. Dugan, he's asking for the $2,214 per unit. That brings me to $24,354, and that does not include the $4,408. So can we just get staff's position with regards to the request on the waiving of those fees, please? So perhaps Anna, if you're in a position to provide comment.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. I can advise that prior to the resubmission of the consent application, the applicant did reach out to staff and request a reduction or waiving of the fees. And we did advise that it was our opinion that the full fee needed to be submitted. We are administering the process for review of this application. It's 4 years, over 4 years old. And so it did require, it wasn't fresh and top of mind for staff. It did require summary review. We do have new staff. The staff time in preparing, the staff report, and as you said, Mr. Chair, with the meeting. So it is our opinion that the full fees should be payable at this time, but ultimately it's the committee's decision this evening.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. Does that answer your question, David?
Yes, it answers my question. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Any further questions, David, on the application?
I think at the moment, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen, any comments or questions on the application?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to start by addressing the agent for the applicant. And Mr. Dugan, first of all, I'd like, to thank you for the time you've taken to address the residents' concerns. But I did want to make a comment, because one of the things that we hear quite often in this committee, and quite honestly, it frustrates me, is when we have developers, and particularly people looking to do infill development, and they come in and they tell the residents that the community that they bought into and the zoning that they bought into is no longer what people want. And then therefore they need to make accommodations for what people want, when we are looking to take a property that was a large property that had a single detached dwelling, and we're going to put 11 dwellings and densify in the middle of what is a low density community. So, as the chair has outlined here, there is significant history here. The town council did not want it. The residents did not want it. And the province has basically said, you will do it. And we have minutes of settlement here that essentially through negotiation is why we're here today. So I recognize this, and I recognize, I fully recognize that within what was approved, you are doing the best that you can. But I also fully understand from the residents' point of view, that's not acceptable. Unfortunately, addressing the residents, I will say that's not what is before us today. There is a site plan review. There was an approved site plan. Ms. Ryan, you mentioned a lot of the conditions. Those need to be satisfied as part of the agreed upon site plan conditions, as the chair has mentioned. And I'm sure that the town is going to be very vigilant in ensuring that the builder does adhere to those conditions. And so within the framework that was approved within the minutes of settlement, I see that we are being asked to approve a consent application for 11 buildings here. So it's just a comment though, and I would, as a word of advice to the developer, and to the agent, Mr. Dugan, it really coming in and saying that the province wants, densification, and I will state for the record, I am fully for densification. I believe that we need it, but I think forcing it upon residents, especially in infill development, and saying that this is what has been agreed at a provincial policy level, especially when we have had a zoning amendment through an appeal process, is a little bit insensitive. Now, I do have some questions for staff, through you, Mr. Chair, to staff. Ms. Ryan referenced 5 pages of conditions in the previous consent application that was approved, I believe, in 2017. Are there any, to the best of your knowledge, are there any conditions that were in the original approval that were not satisfied that are no longer in this set of conditions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Stephen, I've went through the conditions from the previous approval. I'm not sure which specific conditions were satisfied and which conditions were not satisfied to make the consent lapse. But based on the re-review of this application, a lot of the conditions that were in the 2017 decision came from the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and the region, who have now reviewed this application and really didn't provide any new additional conditions other than the LSRCA requiring the review fees paid at this time. The region just really wants confirmation of allocation as a condition, so we didn't need to expand on those in any way. And looking at the regional conditions, there was a lot of conditions that were just duplicate with what would go in the site plan agreement anyway. So to have those again is just duplication. So by having a catch-all condition requiring execution of the site plan agreement was what we considered to be appropriate now, and that's what we've recommended as part of our recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Court. And a few further questions, if you will, and through you, Mr. Chair, just following up on, and perhaps it's Anna that to respond again, but if you could provide, I'm going back to Mr. Dugan's request to waive the fees, and if I understand the argument correctly, the base fee he's amenable to paying the base fee, but believes that the application and the analysis with respect to each individual fee, there was no additional work done because they're essentially the same applications. Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, if you could speak to that and just give us an idea of specifically what additional work was required on the 11 specific units that would warrant the individual fees.
So through Anna.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The review of the application, like I said, the previous application was submitted over 4.5 years ago. And so it required a re-review, I guess, based on that level, just to reacquaint with the file itself. We have a number of new staff that have been involved with the file. We've, as Stephen said, had to re-review the conditions that were previously imposed on the application, determine if they're still appropriate in today's case, because there has been progress and work on this file in those years or during, the 4-year time period. So, I mean, we are very much of the opinion that the time spent and the effort by staff and external agencies warrant that fee, the full fee for the lots and the base fee. And I'd also like to point out, if this application, to be quite honest, it probably should have came in as a plan of subdivision. When you're
Right.
creating 11 lots, it's not really appropriate, in my opinion anyway, to go through consent. And so if this application went through a plan of subdivision, the fees would be substantially higher. So, I'd also like to, that also factored into staff's position and decision on whether we felt it was appropriate to waive or reduce the fee. But again, it's ultimately committee's decision.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Just one more question through you, Mr. Chair, to staff. And obviously I've read the staff report, but one of the minor variance tests, or not minor variance tests, sorry, consent tests that are here is conformity to the official plan, and there was reference to the stable neighborhoods, and how these homes are consistent with the community and represent stable growth. And maybe you could speak to that. How specifically in a low density neighborhood that's specifically a stable neighborhood, this subdivision, if you will, or a series of lots would qualify as stable growth.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Stephen. I think the one thing we would look at from an official plan perspective is the built form that's permitted in the stable neighborhood designation, which is detached dwellings, and that's what's being proposed on this site. And then just going back to the approvals through LPAT and the OMB, through those decisions, it was determined to be in conformity with the region's official plan, the town's official plan, and that's the decision put forward to us. And through this consent application, we're just implementing those decisions at this point.
Yeah, thank you. I understand that, and unfortunately, this is what I referenced earlier. I think we're being handed a decision, and we don't really have a lot of play in it, because when I look at this, I don't understand how this fits into a stable neighborhood, and its stable growth. Unfortunately, to the residents, I don't like it. I don't like this development, but unfortunately, I think we've gone through a process, and this is just a consent application, and it's not a site plan review, right? So,
Right.
So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, and pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. David, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Through the chair, sorry, at the beginning, I thought, questions will only go to the applicants and the other residents, but I discovered that we are going even asking the staff. So I reserved one of my questions for staff. So thank you. I'll ask this question. This will be going to, I think, Steve Cole. Basically, it's related to the conditions, regional conditions. Yeah, I can see that there are conditions related to servicing, basically. But you mentioned when you were answering one of the members' question, you mentioned that some of these conditions are already covered in the site plan agreement. Yeah. Can you confirm that? Because I was expecting the condition on the those conditions on the water and the wastewater servicing to be included in this, but they're not. You only included one regarding servicing allocation. So I want to confirmation from you if these conditions from your region, they are part of the site plan agreement conditions, then I'm okay. If you are saying they're not, then my proposal is to have these as also part of conditions of consent application if we are going to approve this consent application.
Well, to answer your question right now, I have to maybe review the draft agreement to see what's in there. But to answer your question, the only condition through this review requested by the region from Gabrielle Hurst was confirmation of servicing allocation, nothing else. If you want to give me a couple of minutes, I can take a look at the agreement and get back to you on the other.
No, you don't need to look. You don't need to look at agreement. Look at the condition. I'm just reviewing myself. The actual your staff report.
Correct.
The staff report on page, like say, starting from page number 8.
Yep.
Okay. There are sort of conditions I can see there. The way they are written, the owner shall submit engineering designs and so on profiles. So what I'm saying is. Some of these could be in the site plan, could be covered as part of the site plan application because maybe the town is already covered. But when I look down at the condition number 4, it only mentions about the town. It doesn't. It says that the owner execute a site plan agreement with the town related to site plan application, blah, 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 including to engineering and so on. I will expect those to be engineering. But the reference again is at the end to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Development Services. Doesn't even say anything or reflect anything that to include your region. But I'm thinking it does. But I just want confirmation.
Yeah,
just in case.
Yeah, the infrastructure is going to be dealt with through the site plan application. The region is and part of that. But yes, and the only condition they've asked is for the allocation.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So to Mr. Dugan, I wasn't part of this committee at the 2014 submission when this was originally reviewed by the Committee of Adjustment. At the time that this came before the committee, were we talking 11 lots or were we talking 22 lots, which were townhouses at that time?
Mr. Chairman, the previous consent application was exactly the same as the current one.
Okay.
11.
So the fees that were paid were based on the 11 lots as we see them in this consent. Am I correct?
That's right. The original fee was $21,695. It consisted of a base fee of $3,325 plus $1,670 per lot times 11.
Okay.
And the new application fees, duplicate everything, but with price inflation, the price is now $28,762.
Correct.
And there was discussion with the previous planning director. At that time, we had started a condominium application, and the condominium lawyer, who does a lot of work in Aurora and other municipalities that are in the area, made the case to the planning director that there was nothing that could be done through a plan of subdivision that wouldn't be done through the development agreement that was required as part of the site plan. And the planning director agreed with him and said, yes, normally we would not require, or we would not allow a consent for 11 houses. But in this case, we've got a zoning bylaw that's been approved by the OMB. We've got a site plan application that's been approved by the OMB. We've got a development agreement coming. We got nothing further to achieve. And so we will do it through consent.
Right.
So we've done that process once. And we've had a lot of delays. We've had staff changes at the municipality. We've had COVID, of course. It took us forever to satisfy the Conservation Authority with regard to the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan and its requirement for phosphate reduction. It took us even longer to get approval from the York region, which seemed to add new requirements every couple of months. So yes, we didn't get all of the conditions satisfied within the 1-year time period. But then it raised the question, should you have to satisfy all of the site plan application requirements in order to get the consent? Anyway, we are where we are. We did ask for some consideration on the pricing, and we'll leave that in your hands.
Question to staff as a follow-up. So I believe this committee has received requests from developers and individuals when situations like this occur, where we're approving something with a time limit on it, 1 year. I recall, I believe it was last winter, where a request came from a developer to extend the time frame from a year to, I believe it was 18 months or even 2 years, in order to complete the conditions that were stipulated. And that was as a result of, again, things that occurred, such as what we're dealing with today. Could the applicant have come forward towards the end of the 1 year period and said, we'd like an extension to get all of those conditions satisfied, and come before the committee and deal with it as a separate request? So either Anna or Stephen.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anna.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Just going to let you know that the Planning Act requires that for provisional consent, the conditions have to be fulfilled within 1 year. The applicant has the ability to come back to change the conditions of approval, but they do not have the ability to extend the 1 year time frame. And just as a note, I know that the province is currently looking into potentially making changes to the Planning Act to extend that 1 year time frame, but those changes are not in effect at the time. So at this moment, so the 1 year time frame still applies, and the applicant can come back and submit an application to change the conditions, but not the 1 year time frame. I hope, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wondered I knew the answer to the question. I just wanted everyone on the committee to be aware of that, as well as the applicant, and in deliberating the request from the applicant to waive whole or in part, or at the discretion of the committee, whole or in part of the fees that we are looking at in this particular application. I think what I'll do is I'm going to go on record myself, just so that the applicant understands where I stand on his request. And this is just dealing with his request or their request on the fees. You know, in my career, I've found myself in the same boat as you, Mr. Dugan, and the fees are always something that goes into, you know, the cost of the development. And my experience has been whenever someone has asked, whenever I have asked for fees to be waived, I can tell you that after sitting on both sides of the desk, as it were, both as a consultant and as a planning director, it's hard to, you know, rationalize sometimes the fees, but in a lot of other cases, you know, a lot of time goes by, the staff does change, and it's part of the processing of these applications. So when it comes to my position on the fees as they have been laid out for us here, I won't be supporting, if a motion comes forward to waive the fees or any part of those fees, I won't be supporting it. I'll let the rest of the committee decide themselves what they wish to do, and it'll have to be a motion that comes forward and voted on. And with that, perhaps maybe what we do is look at these two matters separately, both the request from the applicant on the fees and obviously on the consent itself. I'll just do my own summary on the consent itself. I think we have a situation here where I'll just put it on the table. I can see what the residents are saying. If they were part of the OMB and part of LPAT, they would have been aware of what negotiations were taking place. They would have been aware of the terms of settlement. And the applicant is not coming forward with any variance to zoning. It's not coming forward with anything other than the consent application itself. So to try and suggest that, you know, we turn the units 1 and 11 to bungalows, you know, I think you know, Mr. Dugan and the developer here or owner of the property have gone down that road. You know, I think that there isn't really, from my perspective, any grounds where we can, that I would suggest that we not approve it. Stephen raises a good point with regards to stable neighborhood. Does this have an impact on the neighborhood from a stability point of view? You know, I think that there are some concessions in the minds of the residents immediately around this particular application that the owner has tried to address. Certainly from my tour of the site, there is an awful lot of mature trees that, you know, will probably satisfy the views that have been raised as concern. But then again, time will tell on that one. So that's my summary of where I'm standing myself. I'll ask then Stephen. Yes, I see your hand up.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. I do have one further question, if you'll indulge me, and I think it's a question to staff, but I'm not entirely sure. And I'll phrase it and you can decide who to direct it to. My question here is quite simply summarized: why are we here today? Because we have a consent application in front of us. We have we have minutes of settlement here. So, and I'll just point to one of the tests is it consistent with the official plan? And it says the official plan recognizes the importance of protecting and enhancing stable neighborhood lands. New development within this designation shall be compatible with its surrounding context. And I struggle to see how this is compatible with the surrounding context. You know, and you know, I think that the town answered the question, and this is why we're here today, and that's why town council opposed it, you know, from the beginning, because it was incompatible. But we have an MOS here, and we have an approved site plan. So the question is this consent application an extension of the site plan, or is the Committee of Adjustment here tasked with an independent assessment of whether it meets the 4 tests? So I guess to summarize my question, have these 4 tests been addressed through the LPAT appeal process and a verdict rendered, and truly is the decision made for us here already? Or are we doing are we independently assessing whether these consent applications meet the test as an independent part of this process?
So before, I think this is a staff question, Steve, and I don't think we would be here, quite frankly, if within the 1-year period, all of those conditions had been satisfied. Unfortunately, they weren't. So that is why we're here. I don't know that the town has taken the position that the town is taking the position that it does meet the 4 tests. I mean, that's clear in the staff report.
So just to clarify, so this is a consent application.
Yeah.
It's not subject to the 4 tests. It's
Yeah.
subject to the criteria under Section 51 of the Planning Act. Variances are subject to the 4 tests. And the applications preceding it was a zoning amendment, also not subject to the 4 tests, and that's what was approved through LPAT and the OMB. So we're kind of in that state right now, and Tom's absolutely correct. The only reason we're here right now today is because the previous 2017 approval was lapsed for failure to satisfy all the conditions.
Exactly.
Thank you. That answers my question pretty clearly, and I apologize. I was confused by some of the context in the staff report. Okay,
No,
I'm good.
not-
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Not at all, Steve.
Yeah.
David, did you want to add one more?
Yeah, just to comment. Thank you, Steve. Cole, you mentioned that. What we have to look at on page number 4, basically, they summarize what we're looking at on that staff's report. The matters of provincial interest is already approved. The confirmatory official plan, whatever, is already done. So the build of the land of purpose is for subdivision. Somehow, that's what we're looking at. Dimensions, shape is already done. Adequate utilities, municipal services, that's what I was asking. It's already done. Number of adequate highways is already demonstrated there. So let's focus on consent. This is the consent application. That's what I'm done to, just to let's not confuse with minor variance or other applications.
Correct.
Thank you.
So let's deal with the consent application, and then we'll deal with the fees. Look to the committee for a motion on the consent application with the conditions as they appear in the staff report, and that would be Appendix C. Do I have a motion? David?
Through the chair, I move that the consent application C-2021-10 be approved, subject to the conditions as indicated in the staff's report. Thank you.
Appendix C, okay. Do I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Steve. All in favor of the motion as presented? Opposed? Linda, I don't believe I saw a hand either way. Can you just clarify that one? And your mic is off.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't oppose it.
All right. So let the record show that all members of the committee are in favor of the application. As it relates to the fees and the request from the applicant on waiving the fees that have been required in this particular consent, is there a motion from members of the committee on that? And that can be all, part, or status quo. I see Daniel's hand. Daniel.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm due to the fact that 4 years has gone by and no communication on this has continued during that process. I move that the charges be upheld as they have been outlined by the town with no considerations.
Is there a seconder for that? David. So we have a motion and a seconder. I'll call the question. All of those in favor of the motion as presented? Against? So that carries. Thank you very much. So Mr. Dugan, I believe that we have approved the consent application. However, your request to have the fees waived was considered by the committee, and we have taken the position that the fees shall be required. So we thank you then, all of you, for being part of the long discussion on this item, but I think it's been an important one. And we'll move on to the next item. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is, let me just go to the agenda here, make sure I'm getting this in the right order. Yes. Minor variance MV 2021-31. This is for Smith at 53 Metcalf Street. And this application, the owner applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended to facilitate the removal and replacement of the existing attached garage and front veranda. The following relief is being requested. A, section 4.20 of the zoning bylaw states that an open porch requires a minimum setback of 4.5 meters. The applicant is proposing a front veranda, which is 3.3 meters to the front property line. B, section 4.20 of the zoning bylaw states that steps require a minimum setback of 4.5 meters. The applicant is proposing front steps, which is 2.6 meters to the front property line. C, section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum front yard setback of 6 meters. The applicant is proposing an attached garage, which is 3.5 meters to the front property line. Section 24.497.3.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard of 1.5 meters. The applicant is proposing an attached garage, which is 1 meter to the interior side property line. E, section 24.497.5 of the zoning bylaw states an integral garage shall be flush or set back from the main front wall of the detached dwelling. The applicant is proposing an attached garage which projects in front of the main front wall of the detached dwelling. And F, section 5.4 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum of 2.0 parking spaces for a detached dwelling. The applicant is proposing 1 space. So the subject property is known as 53 Metcalf Street, located within the Town Park Stable neighborhood area on the south side of Metcalf Street, east of Yonge, and south of Wellington Street East. And 53 Metcalf Street is a non-designated property listed on the town's heritage registry. The official plan, the subject property is designated stable neighborhoods by the town of Aurora's official plan, which seeks to ensure that the residential neighborhoods are protected from incompatible forms of development while allowing the neighborhoods to be enhanced over time. So planning comments are as follows. As it relates to the official plan, town are satisfied that the scale, location, and materials of the proposed veranda and attached garage will further strengthen the sense of identity for the stable neighborhood area, which has a strong heritage character. As such, staff consider the requested variances to meet the general intent of the official plan. With respect to the zoning bylaw, the requested variances are not anticipated to create any significant impact on the streetscape, character of the area, or to abutting properties. It is the opinion of staff that the requested variances meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw. With regards to the desirability of the appropriate development of the property, the proposal is not subject to site plan approval. The urban design guidelines for the town park neighborhood were reviewed. Staff are of the opinion the proposal is consistent with the veranda styles and projected front walls that currently exist within the town park neighborhood. Further, on November the 1st, 2021, staff presented the proposal to the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting, and the committee expressed no questions or comments on the proposal. With regards to the variances being considered minor in nature, there will be minimum impact on the streetscape character, as the front of the building wall will be in general alignment with the other homes on Metcalf Street. Further, no impacts are anticipated for neighborhood properties. As such, staff are of the opinion that the requested variances are minor in nature. Other comments from other agencies. Building Division completed its zoning review on July 22nd, 2021. Engineering Division has no objection to the variance applications, provided that a site grading plan is prepared by a professional engineer to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Development Services, and submitted that demonstrate that the existing drainage pattern shall be maintained, and any changes in the drainage due to the proposed site work shall not cause any adverse impacts on adjacent neighboring properties. And second, that the roof drain downspouts shall be located away from the property line to avoid direct outlet of water onto adjacent properties. Operational services. There are trees situated on the subject property and or property line that may be impacted by excavation or disturbance due to construction. And so they're asking that confirmation of the impacts to the trees is required. And, whoops. Sorry, my screen is jumping around here. My apologies. Central York Fire Services, no comments received. York Region has no comments on the application. And LSRCA, no comments on the application. That is, as it is located outside the area governed by OREG 17906. Electric Utilities has no objections to its approval. The conditions of approval are attached as Appendix A. I'll ask if the owner or applicant is with us and wishes to address the committee. And I believe, is it Mr. Michael Swan that is with us this evening?
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Swan, and welcome. Do you wish to make a presentation to the committee? Your mic, Mr. Swan, has been muted there, so if you want to take yourself off of mute. And I'll ask, yeah, that's much better. If we can get your name in full and your address, please.
Right. My name is Michael Swan. I reside at 104 Seton Drive in Aurora.
Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Hello, my name is Michael Swan of Homes to Be Design Corporation, representing the owners of 53 Metcalf Street in the town of Aurora. I would first like to thank the committee for the opportunity to present an application on behalf of my clients. Next slide, please. The proposal is to demolish the original veranda and attached garage, both located at the front of the existing house, and to replace them with new, slightly larger, more functional ones. 53 Metcalf Street is a two-story brick detached house built in the early part of the 20th century, similar to the majority of homes in the neighborhood. An addition was added to the rear of the brick dwelling in 2011. The owners have recently discovered that the stone foundation of the original portion of the house is failing due to water infiltration in the mortar joints. The east, north, and west foundation walls need to be repaired. The best solution is to conduct these repairs from the exterior. The perimeter must be excavated and any damaged mortar joints must be repointed, followed by the introduction of a perimeter protective barrier. To achieve this, the garage and the veranda must be removed. Next slide, please. The removal of the existing veranda and garage will allow the owners the opportunity to modify the proposed design and to make the new veranda and attached garage more functional while retaining similar appearance. The owners wish to have a veranda that offers a large seating area. There are several similar ones in the neighborhood. They would also like a garage to be large enough to allow the car doors to be open on both sides simultaneously, in addition to having a small amount of storage inside the garage. Currently, the passengers must enter and exit the car while the car is in the driveway. The redesigned veranda will retain the same projection from the main wall as the existing one that presently is there. The veranda will be widened to the east to be the full width of the house, where it will meet the west wall of the proposed garage. The front wall of the garage is in line with the columns of the veranda. This will allow a roof of the veranda and the garage to be on the same plane. Next slide, please. The proposed garage cannot be pushed further back as required under the zoning bylaw due to the existing windows in the east wall of the house. Because of this, the proposed garage must extend northward and eastward. Next slide, please. The lot of 53 Metcalf Street is irregular in shape, and the front wall of the house is not parallel to the front property line. The proposed veranda and garage are to be parallel to the house. This means that the distance from each of them to the north property line will vary. The proposed northwest corner of the veranda is to be set back 3.36 meters from the front property line, whereas the northeast corner is to be set back 3.75 meters from the same front property line. Similarly, the southeast corner of the proposed garage is to be 1.0 meters from the side property line, whereas the northeast corner is to be 1.66 meters from the same property line. Next slide, please. The town recently removed a diseased town-owned tree from the boulevard in front of 53 Metcalf Street. The sidewalk was replaced following this. The measurement from the proposed front wall of the garage to the back edge of the sidewalk is a minimum of 6 meters. The length of parking space under the zoning bylaw is 5.3 meters. This would allow enough space for a second motor vehicle to be parked. Letters of support for this project were obtained by the owners from their neighbors and were sent to the town for attachment to this file. Next slide, please. The planning report for this application recommends approval with conditions relating to site drainage and trees. I believe that the conditions are unnecessary. The lot is relatively flat and will remain this way. Downspouts will not be directed towards the neighboring land. The closest town tree is 6.6 meters from the proposed garage. Proposal will not have an impact on any other trees since there are none in the immediate surrounding area. I believe that based on my report and this presentation, that sufficient proof is being presented for unconditional approval and is requested that the committee grant the variances sought. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swan. So just to be certain on your presentation, just before
Yes.
we go further. So are you asking that the conditions of approval, all of the conditions of approval here be removed?
No, I would like, sorry, the conditions of requiring a professional engineer to provide a drawing that will not change the site plan at all or the topography of the land. And the trees, as I mentioned, the closest town tree is 6.6 meters away. And the excavation won't be near that at all. So there shouldn't be any damage to that tree at all. So I'm asking that those two items that were a condition of approval written in by the planning department be waived, yes.
So let me just go to those conditions just for a moment. Because I want you to also be clear. With regards to conditions of approval, I'm looking at them here. So that condition number 2, that a site grading plan prepared by a professional engineer is submitted demonstrating the following to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Development Services. The existing drainage pattern shall be maintained, and any changes in the grading due to the proposed site work shall not cause any adverse impacts on the adjacent neighboring property. So that condition relates to grading.
Yes.
And you're suggesting that's not required because you're not going to be substantially adjusting grading.
The land is relatively flat and will remain relatively flat. The clients have no wish to have a raised garage or a lowered garage. They would like the level that it is now because it is relatively flat. And so is the property relatively flat, yeah.
Okay. The other situation that you brought up, and I just again want to be clear, is in condition number 3 that the owner may be required to provide an evaluation report prepared by a certified arborist or professional registered forester outlining all aspects of the impacts that this proposal will have on existing and current remaining vegetation. You're asking that be waived as well? Yes,
because the owners have a small planter with a couple of small bushes. They would, they are not of significance at all. The only trees that are of significance are the town trees. And as I've mentioned, the closest one is 6.6 meters away.
Okay. I'll just, again, I'm going to outline something because these things do come up every single, time.
Yes,
It says that the owner may
right.
be required. So I think there's an opportunity for you to provide justification that says you do not require. It says may require. So
Okay.
that's something that you can sit down with staff perhaps. The other thing that you can do is you can ask that that this work, it happens in larger projects, particularly when there are a lot of impacts to be assessed, but to have that work scoped. In other words, it would be based on conditions that are unique to the area, that
Right.
You don't just get a full report, because the full report isn't required because of the conditions that exist that are there. So I'm just drawing us right to the conditions that are there. I want you to be aware of that when we get into further discussion about it, and we can discuss it further. Prashanthi, I don't believe we had any delegations on this application. Am I correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you're correct. We have no delegations for this item.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it over then to the members of the committee for questions to the applicant. Linda, I see your hand up there. Please go right ahead.
Hi, thank you, through the chair. First of all, I like what you're doing to this property. I like the fact that the garage is going, it'll be a little bit wider. I like the fact that it'll match the back of the house. I think it's going to be lovely and beautiful, and I love the large veranda. I kind of understand what the designer is saying here with the work that's going to be done on this house. Other than the foundation at the front of the house has to be removed and a new one put in because of water damage. It's not much different than putting a whole new weeping tile system in on the outside, or anybody else that has any water damage done to their property. They dig down, they go down. Sometimes they have to replace some of the cinder block, or they have to rebuild in there. It's not much of a difference. I agree, it's not going to destroy the whole front of the property. It's not going to come close to that tree, not the one that was removed. Obviously, it's gone, but the other one. They don't have to dig out more than 6 feet out in front of the house to replace the foundation, which is rotted or is falling apart. I can see that. It's not a major thing, but it will be to put a new foundation around the side of the garage because you're making it wider now. So that's definitely going to be disturbed earth in there, but not that much farther. I think it's going to be, I don't think it's, if they want to save some money without all the professional engineers, I think they probably could do something like that. I think that's actually a fact that can happen. Anyway, I just wanted to say I love the design. I think the new front veranda is beautiful and the garage matching, and that's it. I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone else on the committee? Steve, I see your hand. Please go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I like to second Linda's comments. I think she's the design is great. In walking the property, I also commend staff. I think it was a very comprehensive report. What sort of struck me as I went through the property is that there are varying setbacks in terms of porch and steps and and just frontages, in terms of encroachments on the front yard setbacks. So I think staff took this into account. It's part of the town park charm, and they are irregular lots and irregular builds, and so I don't have any problem with the variances requested. With respect to the comments in terms of removing the two conditions, there I do agree with Linda. I think when you do foundation work, you're not going to have a big difference or a big disturbance. Having said that, you know, when you're building a new garage, a new roof, the runoff, you know, can change. And even though the drawings that are presented today don't indicate to me that there is going to be, and the pictures, that there's going to be a big challenge, we don't know that through the, you know, what we are tasked with approving right now are, you know, variances to setbacks. And I think it's prudent myself to maintain these conditions as the chair has recommended, and have you engage throughout the process in dialogue with town to see if there is the necessity to actually provide these professional reports, or if there's an opportunity to perhaps satisfy the requirements or give town the comfort that is required without that outlay of funds. But I've seen enough of these things where, you know, a problem happens and without the condition, there's no recourse for the town or the neighbors. And so I wouldn't be comfortable removing the conditions myself. So that's my position on this variance. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Let's go then to David. David, you got your hand up there. Go right ahead, sir.
Through the chair, thanks, Steve. You covered some of my points, which I'm happy about. I didn't have to go much into engineering because that's my area. First and foremost, I would say I won't agree at all to remove those conditions regarding grading. I would guess, maybe I would ask you a question. There must have been a time you client or you must have met with engineering staff, reviewed your file, and you are just complaining or talking about drainage around the foundation. Where's water coming from? There are a lot of reasons why you have got wet basements or water coming through the foundation. One of the things is grading, because water is not being graded away. The other thing is maybe the whipping tiles, they're not there or they're not working. So to make, and not only that, of course, you are talking about replacing the same area, like in terms of the veranda or porch. You'll be digging, you'll be disturbing soil. You'll be disturbing at least a good distance from the location or the end of the foundation. You'll be disturbing that area. It will not just like cut, like you're going to trench boxes, cut straight and then it comes up straight. You will be disturbing all surrounding areas. When you're disturbing those surrounding areas, you need to grade those areas. Whatever way you grade it, the point is you're going to grade those areas. So does it need a professional engineer? Not necessarily. Sometimes with the professional engineers, you have some grade, load grading professionals that have a certain building permit designation, who are not even a professional engineer, they are CETs, but they have a special BN number, something like that. They'll do the grading. So as one of the members said, you would maybe discuss this with the town staff in terms of whether you really need a professional engineer or you need somebody who's qualified, professionally qualified to do to prepare such drawings. There are some people who are qualified to do road grading drawings, like your property, and the building permits, they actually allow it. Building code allows that. So for me, just like Steve, I want to agree with you to remove those conditions. Just want to make it very clear. So the other thing which I was going to ask, which I think addresses everything, was in terms of the garage size, trying to match the veranda. The question I would have asked the town, what's the minimum size length of the garage? Like, if at all it's going to be shorter and the reduced setbacks. But overall, the way I look at it, this question is not even necessary because I see everything looks good. Okay. And the downspouts, again, requesting you the downspouts to discharge further. It's not just further from the nearby properties, but also from your own property. Because if the land near the foundation is not properly graded, that water goes back into the foundation. This happens a lot. So again, it comes back to the grading plan. that it needs to be done by somebody professional. So those are my general comments.
Thank you, David. Daniel, any comments or questions to the applicant?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. First, just a quick question to place me correctly. I did do a drive-by and I'm looking at one of my pictures. The current distance of the garage is not currently flush with the home. Are you going to start the garage further closer to the street, or is the garage going to be built? I'm sorry, this is to Mr. Swan. Is the garage going to be built further out than it is currently situated? Or is it going to be pretty much at the same place? You just need the minor variance now that it's being rebuilt?
The garage will be, the face of the garage will be closer to the street. It will be in line with the existing columns. The existing columns of the replacement veranda are in the same location as before. So the overall projection of the entire structure will not be any closer to the street, but the front of the garage wall is closer than the existing one, yes.
Okay, the reason why I ask is I'm a little concerned because of the driveway. If I remember correctly, there was no cars when I took the photo, but the owner has a SUV and a longer vehicle,
Right.
and there's a sidewalk.
Yes, yes.
My concern is there length enough to put a larger vehicle, which unfortunately is the popular vehicle in York region? Is there enough room for
Yes.
the closer garage, vehicle, and sidewalk without impeding on the sidewalk in any way?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm looking at the drawings, and unfortunately the drawings do not show the sidewalk, but I'm
yes.
seeing 4 meters or 3.6 meters. Is that the distance from the sidewalk to the garage door?
No. As I mentioned in my presentation, from the proposed garage to the sidewalk that the town just poured, there is 6 meters. There will be 6 meters.
There will be 6 meters. Okay.
Yes.
So I apologize. It's the drawings, and I know that it's the
No, it's
property
nothing,
line as opposed
because
to.
the edge of the sidewalk and the property line aren't the same. The sidewalk
Understood, and
is
that's what I
totally
thought.
within the boulevard.
Okay, perfect. So you're saying 6 meters, which even with a pickup of about an F-150 at 5.1 meters, you won't be impeding. Okay, that is my concern. And unfortunately, I did not bring a measuring tape, and I didn't know where your actual new garage would be. So I wanted to clarify that. Just trying to be a champion of the neighborhood here. So thank you very much for your time. That was my only question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I think in the staff report, it indicates that he's only providing 1 space as opposed to 2 on site. So I guess we're giving him, or we're acknowledging that there is sufficient space on the driveway for a vehicle in the staff report.
Agreed. I was more concerned that the sidewalk would be impeded when somebody's unloading groceries before putting the car into the garage. That was my concern.
Yeah, and it's a good point. I didn't realize that an F-150 was 5.1 meters, though, so thanks for that.
Thank you.
All right, I echo Mr. Swan, and I believe Jennifer Smith is also in attendance this evening, that you have done a very good job of integrating the new garage structure with the face of the building. And I liked your comment about tying in the roof line of the veranda across the front, the entire front of the structure, and integrating it into the garage as well. I think that adds character to your design. So my compliments to you. I'll look to the committee then for a motion on this variance. And yes, David, go right ahead, please.
Through the chair, because I saw it was quiet, I wanted others to ask, but I can leave that to Daniel if he wants, because I'd already done the first one. But anyways, through the chair,
Okay. Go ahead.
Through the chair, I move that the minor variance application MV-202131 be approved, subject to conditions, all conditions in the staff's report. And no condition should be changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Look for a seconder on the motion. Linda, thank you very much. And all in favor of the motion as presented. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Mr. Swan and I believe Jennifer Smith, the committee has agreed with the request as submitted, and the conditions as they are in the documents provided would be maintained. And I think you can take it from the members of the committee that you could very easily sit down with staff. I think that was a good suggestion to deal with the condition that you were looking to have waived. I think it needs to be addressed. I agree with my committee members, and perhaps the suggestion that a CET, a certified engineering technician, would help mitigate some of the costs associated there. But I'll leave that to you to sit down with staff. So moving forward, and I'll bid you good evening.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be in front of the committee. Thank you.
Our pleasure, and thank you for your patience, because I know you've been waiting a while.
Yeah. Thanks. Good night.
Good night. All right. Next item on the agenda is Demetriou at 5 Child Drive. This is file MV 2021-20. There is a related planning application, and it's SPR 2021-04. The owner applicant is requesting relief from the requirement of the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended to facilitate a ground floor and second 2021-20. So before I go further, I'll ask the applicant then to turn off their YouTube feed and go to the live feed, because all we're getting is my voice twice, which we do not need to hear. Thank you. And we're still there. So can we ask that the applicant or agent please turn off the YouTube feed and go to the live feed, please. Good, I don't hear myself twice. All right, continuing. The following relief is being requested. Section 24.497.3.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard of 1.5 meters. The applicant is proposing a first and second story addition, which is 0.9 meters to the interior side property line. B, section 24.497.3.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard of 3 meters beyond the main rear wall of the adjacent dwelling. The applicant is proposing a first and second story addition, which is 0.9 meters to the interior side property line. C, section 24.497.3.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard of 3 meters, 9.8 feet beyond the main rear wall of the adjacent dwelling. The applicant is proposing an interior side yard setback of 2.4 meters or 7.9 feet. The subject property and area context. The property is municipally known as 5 Child, is generally located north of Henderson Drive, west of Yonge Street, east of Bathurst, and south of Kennedy Street. The subject property is located within the Regency Acres stable neighborhood area. I want to just cover off the applicant's stated reasons for non-complying with the zoning bylaw in the staff report indicate that on the application form, we need double car garage, and increased second floor for the growing family and extended family, i.e. in-laws coming from outside of Canada to live with us. We are keeping the existing house and first floor plate and adding to it, also increasing the existing rear yard setback. Planning comments. Sorry, my screen did jump again. With regards to the official plan, a site plan application is currently under review by the planning staff, where matters relating to site and building design, etc., will be addressed. Staff are of the opinion that the requested variance will facilitate the development of a second story and first story additions that are compatible with and generally in keeping with the low density residential form and character of the neighborhood. It is the opinion of staff that the requested variance meet the general intent of the official plan. Pardon me. With respect to zoning, the applicant is proposing a first and second story addition, which is 0.9 meters to the interior side yard, side property line, whereas 1.4 is required. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed 0.9 meter setback is similar to the existing condition of the site and do not anticipate any impacts to the abutting property to the south. Further, planning staff recommend a condition of approval that no door openings be permitted within the 0.9 meter setback to maintain privacy of the neighboring property to the south. Planning staff are satisfied that the 0.9 meter setback proposed maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters beyond the main rear wall of the adjacent dwelling, whereas 0.9 meters is proposed. The current attached garage has a 0.87 side yard setback. The rear portion of the proposed addition improves the existing condition on the property and provides for more privacy and less impacts for the abutting property to the south. The zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters beyond the main rear wall of the adjacent dwelling, whereas 2.4 is proposed. The dwelling to the north, that is 3 Child Drive, is a 2-story dwelling, and staff do not anticipate any negative impacts. Overall, staff are of the opinion that the requested variances meet the intent of the zoning bylaw. With regards to the desirable, are the variances considered desirable for the appropriate development of the land? Staff are of the opinion that the requested interior side yard variances for the first and second story additions have minimal impact to the existing neighborhood and abutting properties. Staff are also of the opinion that the proposed variances will facilitate the development of additions to the existing a dwelling that is compatible in scale with other dwellings in the neighborhood. Staff note that the property is subject to site plan approval, and staff have included this as a condition of approval to ensure final design is compatible and sympathetic with the existing character of the neighborhood. Are the variances considered minor in nature? The proposed second and first story additions are considered moderate in scale and not anticipated to result in any negative impact to the surrounding properties or neighborhood. As such, staff are of the opinion that the requested variances are minor in nature. Other comments from other agencies. Building Division completed its preliminary zoning review on October 8th, 2021. Engineering Division comments provided stating no comments or concerns were with the proposal, and that was dated October 19th, 2021. Operational Services are commenting that the owner may be required to provide an evaluation report prepared by a certified arborist or a professional registered forester outlining all aspects of the impacts that this proposal will have on existing and current remaining vegetation. In addition, the report shall include a schedule of monitoring the ongoing site works through a series of scheduled site visits by arborist or forester during and post construction to ensure the vegetation preservation measures remain in compliance throughout the project, and that the owner may be required to provide vegetation compensation and a replanting plan in accordance with the Town of Aurora tree removal / pruning and compensation policy. And of course, the owner shall agree to comply with the Aurora tree permit bylaw number 5850-16 prior to the removal of any trees on the property, and that the owner shall agree to provide financial securities based on the total value of the tree compensation evaluation. Operational Services, no comments received at the time of the writing of the report. Central York Fire Services, no comments received. York Region, no comments or concerns with the application. LSRCA, not commenting on the application. It is located outside the area governed by OREG 179-06 under the Conservation Authorities Act. And Electric Utilities are their standard comments that apply in all of these cases. A total of 14 letters of support were received at the time of the writing of the report. And therefore, the planning staff are of the opinion that the requested variances do meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act for granting the minor variances, and that it be conditional to conditions of approval in Appendix B. I'll turn to the owner applicant and ask, do they wish to make a presentation?
Through the chair, yes, we do.
Good evening, sir, and I'll ask you for your name and your address, sir.
Through the chair, my name is Nick Racanelli. I'm at 85 Major Mackenzie Drive East in Richmond Hill, representing the owners at 5 Child Drive tonight.
Good evening, sir. Welcome. Go right ahead.
So to give you a bit of a background, the existing site is a 1-story single-family dwelling constructed of masonry approximately 1950s. Typical construction for the era, 2 bedrooms, 1 washroom with a partially finished basement. There was a rear garage and a rear addition that was constructed approximately 10 to 20 years ago, which will be removed and has typical landscaping and asphalt driveway. Our proposed construction is a transitional style new house with a new 2-car garage moved forward with a side and a rear addition and a complete 2nd floor addition, including 4 bedrooms and 4 washrooms. The exterior finish will include brick, stucco, and wood siding. The floor levels will be approximately 9 feet on the first floor and 8 feet on the second floor, with a total height of 26 feet. There'll be possibly a new rear deck, definitely a basement walkout, and repaving of the existing driveway. Just sort of a repeat, we are proposing to construct the first floor with the attached garage and a second-story addition to the existing home. Approximate area of 100, the first floor addition is 149 meters squared. The second floor addition has approximate area of 180.6 meters squared. The total gross floor area of the proposed first, including the garage and the second story additions, are approximately 329.6 meters squared. So a total square footage of 3,551.75 feet squared. As I mentioned, the existing garage and the existing addition at the rear will both be removed, thereby increasing the rear yard setback. You did mention the owner's need for the this minor variance was the double car garage and increased second floor for the grown family and extended family, i.e. the in-laws coming from outside of Canada. As they said, we are keeping the existing house and the first floor plating, adding onto it. We are increasing the rear yard setback. And so we are looking for relief from the zoning bylaw for the 3 minor variances that you've stated already. Most importantly, including the side yard setback of 0.9 meters. As you mentioned, we have 14 letters of support from our neighbors in all directions who agree with our proposal. We feel it's appropriate and responsible design as we are repurposing the existing house and not demolish it and building a new monster home. So we're trying to be environmentally friendly and keeping the carbon footprint to a minimum. We did see that there was 2 letters of opposition, which I'd like to mention. The first letter of opposition was about the sun and shading. As both properties face west, the sun rises in the east, which is at the rear of the yard, and sets in the front of the house. So there will be no shade created by 5 Child Drive, which is my owner's house, onto the other property, 7 Child Drive. We are completely compliant with the total house height within the zoning bylaw and not seeking any relief. Thereby, the impact of any type of sun shading will be zero, negligible. Their second point was about obstructive views. As we are increasing our rear yard setback, I think the views will be increased. So I don't see a problem with that. And in the third item was if there was addition onto number 7, most likely it would be a garage addition, very similar to ours because we share driveways. So I think the amount of windows would be of a very limited amount. The second letter of opposition was from the Ratepayers Association. It's concerned about setting a precedence. I don't see a precedence in the sense that number 4 Child Drive across the street already has a 0.9 meter minor variance setback, which happened a few years ago. So this has already been started. We are not opening any new cans of worms here or setting any precedents. In conclusion, overall, the staff are in the opinion that the requested variances meet the intent of the zoning bylaw and the official plan. And this minor variance is considered minor in nature and that we are meeting all the 4 tests for planning. The proposed variance, and also we have been through the stable neighborhood review, and hopefully with the conclusion of this, we can get through the site plan approval and onto a building permit. In conclusion, the owners and we all agree to that this the variance is very minor in nature, and we will be adding to the style and of the neighborhood and enjoying our lifestyle. In conclusion,
Thank you. That's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Racanelli. I do believe, Prashanti, that there are members of the public who are here with us this evening that wish to address the committee. So I'll ask them to come forward. I believe it is Derek Inrig and Ines Rizi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Close.
Good evening. Good evening, sir. I'll ask you to introduce yourself and give us your address.
Sure, yeah. My name's Derek Enrig. I'm representing Kathy and Ephraim Reedsy, who are the owners of Seven Child Drive.
Thank you, sir. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so we have our main concern basically is, as was mentioned, we share basically a driveway side by side. Currently, the main entertaining areas, kitchen, living area, we have windows that face right out to that driveway. If this two-story building is constructed, you've just eliminated all our views north towards there's a park at the end of the street and lots of trees and vegetation. Now, we understand that development's going to happen and it is what it is, but we don't understand why they have to go outside the setbacks set up by the town and further impede our view when they can just, if they just abide by it, then that's fine by us, right? And that's more or less it from our point of view. Also, the large wall. I know Nick there said that there's no sunlight issues, but we have 7 windows on that side of the house where light enters into the house into these main entertainment areas, and they're going to be blocked out now by this 2-story dwelling. Okay, so that's, and I think that's just about it. That's all we have to say.
All right, thank you, Mr. Enrig, and appreciate your comments. I'll just go back to the applicant and ask if Mr. Racanelli has any comments on the comments that were made by Mr. Enrig at this point.
Getting through the chair, thank you. I understand his comments. The reasoning, another reason for the variance, we could not fit a double car garage without the 0.9 meter variance. It would have been basically 1.5 cars, and they have 2 cars and possibly with teenagers more cars. So we'd like to be able to park our cars in the garage. Also, I understand about the large windows on that side, but as I said, most likely if any addition were to occur, it would most likely be a garage addition. Also, there's such a great distance between the proposed house and their windows. It's probably, I could give you a dimension, but I'd say it's at least 15 feet. So that would allow a lot of window and a lot of different views and angles to be seen from sitting in that house. I don't think that there would be, if those windows are right up to the property line, yeah, I could understand that, but there's at least 15 feet between the 2 houses. So I think it's ample amount of space for light and any kind of unobstructed views for that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So thank you there for your comments on his concerns that he has raised.
We were just, sorry, we were referring to the views down the street. I mean, this garage, if you look at the plan, the building's built up to the front edge of our house as well. So it completely eliminates that northern view.
Right.
Not to mention that the house that is across the road that he mentioned earlier, that has set this precedent, we've already seen what can happen, and that house is completely blocked out.
Thank you. I don't know that there are any other delegations appearing before the committee this evening. Am I correct, Bersanti?
Through the chair, you are correct. We only have 1 delegation for this item.
Thank you. So I am going to look to the members of the committee for comments, questions, and observations. And I'll start with David. Go ahead, David.
Through the chair, I'll ask this question. Is actually the opposing person's question, basically, it's also my question. And this question basically goes to the town staff, just to elaborate. Should the opposing neighbor decide to add an addition to their property, how will this variance, if it is allowed, how will they affect their proposal? Will there be an issue about distance to the new location of this garage, of this building, or it will be strictly to the property line?
So I get
Through you,
that.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Tom. Through you, Mr. Chair. If I heard the question correctly, I'm going to repeat it just to make sure I answer the question. You asking how this proposal, if approved by the committee, will impact the neighboring property's ability to build in the future? Is that the question?
Yeah, if the neighbor wants to also have an addition, how would the town also look at the distance setbacks from the property line only, or will also look at the distance from the new neighbor's location of the addition?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I understand the question now. Thank you for clarifying, David. To answer the question, whether the committee approves the variance, if the committee approves the variance this evening, it will have no bearing on the zoning for the property at 7 Child, meaning that what the existing land use permissions and standards that are established in the town zoning bylaw would continue to apply to 7 Child, meaning that the side yard setbacks would need to be complied with. So the 1.5 meters to the side lot line, if the new building at 7 Child extends beyond the rear wall of 5 Child, then they would need a 3 meter setback. So the same zoning bylaw standards would apply.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for that comment back from staff. I'll look to other members of the committee. I've got a whack of things I've got to go through, but I want to hear everybody else out first. Stephen, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I mean a comment. I think I thank the owners for going out and getting the having the extensive dialogue with the community that they've had. I also want to mention that I live in this neighborhood, and I look at the previous renovation and build that they did as really an example of how to grow in a stable neighborhood, respecting the houses around them and the just the massing and the design. I think they did a wonderful job, and I've heard that from various people in the community as well. With that said, sorry, I'm not, I heard a little, that's all right. When I look at these plans, and Mr. Racanelli, if I understand properly, you need this variance, side yard setback on the south side to be able to fit the garage. But what I'm not seeing, and when I look at, I'll just flip, I go to the drawings, and I'm looking at, if I look at the drawings, and the one that I'm looking at, Prashanti, is the one that's labeled page 40 out of 46. And I'm looking at, I'm trying to figure out how much living space, because we don't really see the interior floor plan. But I'm just wondering, I understand the garage is going to have to be a certain size. And I'm just wondering why the porch cannot be moved over, and essentially, you know, that the garage can't be made to accommodate why you couldn't. I understand why you need the width where it is, but essentially, why couldn't the living space be shortened an extra, we'll call it, you know, 0.6 meters, just to be in compliance at least with one of the setbacks, not the one obviously beyond the rear wall.
In response, I could show you a floor plan. So, but maybe I'll just start with the site plan. So where you see the gray shaded area,
yep,
that is the house. So that wall is going to remain and be part of the load bearing wall. So we couldn't move that wall over unless we started ripping most of the house down. We wanted to try and keep the existing house, use the structure that's there, and do minimum impact into the site. So that's basically it. We can't move that wall. I'd like to, but we can't. It would cost a lot more money. We're trying to keep it reasonable. I mean, it would have been easier just to knock everything down, and we would have probably not needed that and could have built a lot bigger house, but we're trying to maintain the existing footprint.
Existing floor plate, okay.
Because that wall will be the load bearing wall for the floor joist above and for the garage, the defining point between the garage and the inside of the house.
Okay. No, that thank you for that. That explains the layout that we're seeing here and the dimensions.
Would you like? I could show you the floor plan if you want to see that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that would be very useful.
I hope I can share it with you here.
Prashanti, I think it's in the staff report, two pages further. You've got the floor plan for the ground floor there, and floor plan for the second floor as well.
Okay.
I must be looking at an old staff report. I'm not seeing it in my copy here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the application, Steve. My apologies. It's in the package that was circulated for comment.
Because I know we asked for the floor plan of the basement, right? Which wasn't available.
Yeah, revision to it.
Can everybody see that now?
Yeah.
Let me just find you the floor plan. There. So you can see this is the basement plan, but this will help. This is the new wall for the garage with the 0.9 setback. This is the existing wall that's remaining. You're going to be filling in some of those windows because the garage will have a floor slab. There's no basement on the garage. There will be a basement at the back part. And then this is the existing basement. And that's why the porch can't be moved at all. It's right. Everything just worked out very well. We're keeping the porch, getting the garage, and then the whole floor space will be opened on the first floor.
Okay.
And the first floor will be better, easier. Give me a second. So see the gray wall? This gray one is the existing. Beyond it, it will be removed to give us this open concept, but we just sort of tucked the garage in there nicely. And actually it's with the 0.9, it's really, it's 17 feet. It barely, you know, it will fit 2 cars in there.
Okay. Okay, and so through you, Mr. Chair, my second comment is I think that you've addressed, or the applicant has addressed in their response to their neighbors' comments, the sunlight issue, and I think the east-west configuration of the house, and also the fact that there's a driveway beside it. I don't think there's any light concerns, and I think we don't have a height variance in front of us today. It's just the side yard setbacks. I think, and I share the same concern as my colleague that David mentioned, that the challenge here is, I think, as these builds happen in this neighborhood, you know, if there was another build beside, and I look at it and I say a 0.9 meter side yard setback, and then another build with potentially a 26-foot wall, you know, is that good development for this neighborhood? And that's my challenge, and that's what I struggle with, because that's not what's before us today. And I do agree with staff that this is compatible today. But what we've considered in other applications is, if the neighbor then decides to do the same thing, are we giving a benefit to a first mover here? Because I likely would have trouble approving another one with a 0.9 meter setback and 30-foot high walls. Because if you look at what's happening in this neighborhood, and you've referenced it very well, and I fully acknowledge this is not a monster home, but this is, you know, a pretty high wall very close to the property line. And I'm very challenged with this one, just because I see what could happen down the road. But I do understand the rationale, so I'll sort of leave it at that. Those are the challenges that I have with this application. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Let me go to other members of the committee. Maybe we can click out of there. Unless there are questions from other members of the committee that I can't see other members of the committee. Let me just canvass the committee members. David, do you have any questions? And do you want this graphic left up?
Oh, I could take it down, sorry. I like seeing my work done.
So David, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I know I was given the chance, but yeah, thank you for the second chance. So as Steve has said, it's just that 0.9 meters. It's less by 1 meter by 0.1. And I'm trying to imagine if you have to have sort of a swale conveying runoff. If let's say in the future we have another house close, also 0.9 meter setback. Yeah, that's the question would be to Mr. Lacaneri. Is there any, did you look at any possibility of increasing the setback? Because if you look at the drawing which you are showing us, which was very good, that the AutoCAD drawing, I would imagine. You have two cars, but you have got on the other car to the left, your sort of stairs. I can see sort of stairs to take you to the, maybe to the up a little bit, so that you can go into the house. And I know it's taking up some space there. Yeah, I understand from the planner mentioned that everything will be relative to the setbacks, not the neighboring property, but the setbacks from property line.
Mm-hmm.
But I think being difficult for the other committee, if they are given the distance of the other house to the property line, and then this other one comes with another variance, and they look at the total difference is about 1.8 between the two. And then you look at the, okay, if you're going to build a swale to convey water between these two houses. Now, are there any issues of drainage? Well, the previous application was issues about drainage, whipping tiles and all that stuff. So that's the only part which is concerning me. And I don't know how maybe my question would be, are you at all able to reduce or to increase a little bit of that setback in one way or another?
Well, it would greatly affect the additions and change the whole design part of it.
Yeah.
in response to the grading and the drainage, in total, there would be 1.8 meters. And with,
Yeah.
with a swale down the middle, with some pumps, and with even, we could put in a French drain, we could redirect the water from the front and the back to a French drain. It should eliminate any problems between the two houses. And as I said before, mostly if an addition was built 0.9, it would 99% chance be another garage. So again, the views wouldn't be any problem. There wouldn't be like a living room on that side, most likely a kitchen, as we did, which has only a very small window just to get some light in. So I've done this many times where most on homes of a smaller setback, most of the light will come through the front and the back. I mean, I've done many homes in the city, and this is generally what happens. I mean, we have large windows in the back, large windows in front, the side yards, because we don't want to look at our neighbors. Even if we have a little bit more distance, we just rather not have any views there. We keep it to the front where you can see your backyard, keep it to the front where you can see all your nice plants. So that, I've done this many times. It's not really a problem. Other than drainage is the only possible problem.
Yeah, yes. For me, I'm not talking about the views. I'm talking about drainage.
Yeah,
I didn't ask about
drainage
that.
is not a
Yeah.
problem. I mean, with sump pumps, you can get larger sump pumps. You can get French drains put in that redirect all the water to the backs or the front, so that there'd be very minimum water sitting between the two houses, causing any chaos or affecting anybody's foundations. Right.
So is that what you are proposing to do?
We can do it. That's not a problem. It hasn't been an issue because nobody's brought it up until now. So, between the swale and a French drain, which isn't hard to construct, that would alleviate a lot of the water problem.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, David. Let me go to Linda. Linda, any questions or comments to the applicant?
Hi, thank you. And through the chair, they've got a very wide driveway. The neighbors right beside, I see that. I looked at the Google map one. I was there myself. I walked the property around, not behind, but in front. There is they must have at least 15 feet across from the side of their house to the property line. I can see a very tall building there, and it will block those side windows they have, because your house is right beside it for sure. If they look out their window, straight out their window, they're going to see a wall of the garage. There's no question about that. There's still light coming from the top, but I see their objections. I see their concerns, but there is 15 feet between their door and the wall, and it becomes complacent. I think that's the way the buildings are going to be built now. I don't think you have a lot of choices. You're staying within the template of your property. You are going directly up with it, except for that driveway area right beside the house. You're losing that piece of your driveway because that's now becoming part of your home. I see that too. I don't like the design necessarily. It's a nice design. I don't think it does fit in, as you say, into the neighborhood. I don't think a 3,500 square foot house is, when you say it's not a monster house, I think that's pretty big. I'm going to go with that. I'm still thinking that's a very large house. You're changing a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, partially finished basement into 3,500 square foot, 4 bedrooms, 4 baths on top. That wasn't right what you said there. But anyway, I see this as the neighborhood is changing. The styles are different. I get it, but there are some, legitimate concerns the neighbors have, and the rest of the street has. There's one house that's very modern across the street. There's no other ones down the street. I went and looked or around, so it's not the style of the neighborhood, but it is maybe up and coming. You have to open your mind for a few things too. That's all. I really don't have any. Those are just my comments and my sights on this one.
Could I share some of the photos I have of the other houses that are in the area that might change?
Within walking distance?
I'm not exactly sure if they're walking distance, but they're very close.
I looked, sorry. Yeah, sure. Of course you can. But I was really just right in the,
maybe not right on that particular
Yeah,
street, other than
that's
number
what I
four-
mean, yeah.
Other than number 4.
Yeah, other than number 4, yeah, you're absolutely, but I'm just saying, when you said it was the style, it's actually not. That's all.
Yeah.
You know, and it is a
It
monster
is a
when
changing-
compared.
The changing street, there's a lot of different styles, to be honest.
Understood, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me go to the remaining member of the committee. Daniel, any comments or questions?
I think the advantage of going last this time is that every single thought I had has gone forward. So I'm good. There's my main question was, or my main hesitation has to do with the angle of sight from the neighbors, and the necessity of or the importance put on 2-car garages. I'll repeat a comment that I made earlier in terms of car garages seem to be important in terms of boasting and selling, but rarely do we actually put our cars in them. So I'm a little bit, I don't use that as a justification, but the living I do, and some of the other arguments, yes. And I also, maybe I will make one comment, and I'll channel one of our previous members, Michelle, in terms of what is the difficulty in meeting the bylaws as they're put forward. It is frequently easier to ask permission than try to meet them, and some of them rely on existing conditions with new bylaws that came into place. And there's a comment there that the garage is actually going to be better in terms of complying, but the garage now extends several more meters than it did previously. So there's a little bit of everything in this application, and I guess I have to make a decision in my head very, very quickly. And luckily, I still have Tom to ask questions to give me some of that time that I need. So thank you. I was just thinking out loud there. I don't know what I was saying.
I like it when people think out loud, because what it does is, we as a committee, and I guess I'm speaking. Well, David, it's been on the committee for on and off the committee for quite a number of years, and between the two of us, I think we've seen a good number of these. And man, well, I don't know where to start. So I'm just going to start right now with the one document that I'd like some comment on, and because I think it's important to bring this forward. The Ratepayers Association, they've been in this area and they're organized, and I'm sure that the comments that were made by the vice president of the association are echoed by many. Otherwise, we wouldn't receive this. And their objections are that this application is requesting approval to reduce the side yard setbacks, given the considerable massing of the proposed design, which is to construct a modern styled home with blocky vertical facades. A reduction in the setbacks is going to be extremely detrimental to the streetscape in the area and the adjacent properties in particular. If anything, and this is kind of hitting home with me, the bylaws for side setbacks should be amended to increase the space between the structure and the property line when massive infill houses of this blocky modern style are proposed. I think it is important to also point out that this proposed infill change is essentially a demolition, not simply an addition. And then they go on to ask the committee not to approve the application because of the concerns and the precedent that it will set for all of Aurora's stable neighborhoods, and that the revised zoning bylaws should be respected and adhered to. I have to say, I don't take those comments lightly. In particular, the comment about you are in an existing established neighborhood, many of which are bungalows. And they were built with setbacks that at the time were the norm for the area. And now we're about to not only go from a bungalow to a two-story building and reduce that side yard down to less than a meter. I have some serious concerns because when I looked at the original circulating package, I didn't know why you couldn't relocate the front entrance into the area that would become your office. Because the entrance as it is a very wide hallway. That whole area could have been brought in towards, the new living area there without really impeding the square footage of the area that would be used as that function. Cut the office back a little bit and maybe include the window or reconfigure the window and maybe reconfigure the staircase in there a little bit in order to accommodate even increasing that side setback another meter. I would be much more comfortable with a 2-meter setback, albeit a reduction of a meter for that side yard. There's a massive kitchen there. And I think the interior space could very easily, without, causing the new space to be more than ample, and respect the side setback for a 2-story structure a little bit more than it does. I don't disagree with the comment that you may not be demolishing it, but you're still reconfiguring that whole ground floor plan anyway. And you're turning it into an open concept. So you are doing some major structural changes to the existing home. So I struggle with that. There is supposed to be an attempt here to meet the requirements of the bylaw. I know that this was supposed to come to the committee before now, and you've made some very minor changes, which I don't believe really add to the difference between what was originally circulated to what we've got today. The other concerns that I've got, and I'm wondering why we didn't do a shadow study so that we could really see the impacts that it would have on the neighboring properties, not just the properties immediately to the adjacent extension to your home. So I really don't think that that I would be in a position to support what we're looking at this evening. And I've got to ask the question. I've asked staff to do a little bit of research because if I'm not mistaken, the owners of this property owned 4-child and did exactly the same thing. And then subsequently sold that property. I'm kind of wondering why we're here. If we amended our regulations for them at 4-child in order to accommodate their family, why are we doing it again right across the street when we've already done this for them once across the street? I struggle with that in light of the fact that we are really amending the bylaw here in order to do it again. I don't think it's compatible with the rest of the street. I tend to agree with the Ratepayers Association on that point. The other one that, we keep hearing in this community, Aurora is one of it's the 10th most affluent city in Canada, the 10th most affluent city in Canada. And I continually hear comments, from the mayor and members of council and all kinds of individuals in this community who can no longer afford housing in our town. And my own children can't afford a home in Aurora. It's become that unaffordable. And here we are in the midst of an existing well-established community and taking what would be affordable, potentially down the road, affordable housing for them, and essentially knocking down that housing supply and replacing it with, I'm going to say it's not a monster home, but it is a much, much bigger home than it needs to be, with a family with 2 boys and family coming in. So I'm going to let Mr. Rackhelli, I believe you were involved in number 4. I believe that we're talking about the same owner, the same family. And here we are again. And, this is not minor for me. This is a major reduction, and it has implications to the neighbors if they should decide that they want to come forward with an extension. And if it happens, I know it's based on the merits of the application, and it's up to the community then to either come forward with their objections on each individual on their merits. And that may very well happen, next door. And it may very well come back to this committee again. But I don't see why we couldn't have done a better job on this one. And I can tell you, with a motion to come forward to amend, I can tell you, I don't think you'll get my support on this one. So I'll let you comment on that, and I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, thanks for your comments. What is governed? The market is really governing what these houses are being built, and unfortunately, yes, some of your comments were right. But this is what the houses are and the prices that we're dealing with at the moment. I was speaking to the owners. We would like to either defer, or we would like to try to readjust our floor plan and site plan to come to a better agreement, if this is possible.
From my perspective, I think that would be welcome. Very much welcome. Because, I think I don't only speak for myself, because I think other members of the committee are struggling with this one a little bit as well. And I see Stephen your hands, coming up, and I'm going to let him chime in on this one.
Sorry, Mr. Raganelli, I'd be very careful, at least with me, saying that this is what the market dictates when the neighbor and the Ratepayers Association are saying they don't like it. And I'll repeat a comment if you've been with us all night. Something that really rankles me is when new people, and I realize these owners have been longstanding owners in the community. So, but something that in general really rankles me when you have a new infill development, especially in a stable neighborhood, and people come and say, this is what everybody wants, in the face of opposition from the community that has been there for a long period of time. So I echo the chair's comments. I think I have made a decision. I came into this actually not having made a decision. I have a decision in my mind on this, and I also would welcome going back. And I do have one further question. Mm-hmm. We were presented with all kinds of people supporting this application and by the applicant. But I think what's really telling here is that the direct neighbor who is most impacted is against this. And then the response from the applicant is, we're saddened that we meet our new neighbor through a letter of opposition. I'm very curious, how is it possible that you get 14 letters of approval across the whole street and there was no dialogue with the neighbor that was the most impacted here? That's something I meant to ask and I struggle with here. Yeah, sorry, I see Ms. Demetriou.
Hi, hello, Mr. Chair. Because I don't know if you noticed from the pictures that I provided you with, we are talking about an investment property next to us. Like we've been living even across the street at 4th Child Drive and we never got to meet the neighbors. That's the reason for not meeting them. So, and all the other, we try to obtain more letters of support, but when knocking on doors, I was told that actually most of the houses, I don't know if you knock at the doors because driving by, you cannot really tell, but I would say, and I'm not saying this lightly, that close to half of the houses that they are right now on Child Drive are rented. And by rented, I mean main floor is rented to a family, you know, the basement is rented to another family. So we have both.
Mr. Chairman, Val Dumitriu. So one more comment related to the next door. We tried to approach the owners from number 7 and many times. Lately, through the letter that we received with their comments, we found out that they're not the owners. First of all, the people that they were living there. Second of all, they just moved out and they rented the property with November 1st. They bought the property in Sharon. So honestly, I don't understand why this objection from their part. And I don't see, we're confused for the last 2 days when we found out we never met the actual owners of the number 7. So to answer your question, that will be why we try to engage them, we try to discuss with them. We had 2 discussions with Derek, the guy that we suppose he was renting over there. I don't know who was, because he's not the owner over there. So there you go. That's what I can give you at this moment.
Thank you. Sorry, if I'm permitted to respond, Mr. Chair, through you. Thank you. That does clarify for me, because it's very clear to me that you've made quite an effort to canvass the community. So that is good, very important context. So thank you for that. But I do, my previous comment about infill in a stable neighborhood does stand here.
Daniel, I see your hand up there.
And I also want to point out that, we are still in review. We are still in talk with the town's planners for the design of the house. Like, we are willing to bring in elements that they are a little bit more traditional, to bring more wood, to bring a little bit of brick. Like, I just wanted to point out that part of the review, I know it's a different application, a different process, it's still ongoing. So we are not done with that. The design, as you see, it's not finalized.
Yeah, no, and I recognize you do have, and I mentioned that at the onset, that you do have a site plan application
Yes.
submission.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
Daniel, I saw your hand come back up.
Thank you. So just to, I guess, to support what Mr. Recanelli was alluding to, and then to sort of repeat and contextualize what I was saying earlier. there are bylaws in place, and we have the committee of adjustment in place in order to provide exceptions to it. If I'm not mistaken, as part of this proposal or request, there was the comment that the reason why you cannot comply is because it's a family situation and you're trying to grow, although that does not seem to be the case anymore.
No. Sorry, I am Romanian born. My husband the same. I'm the only child. He's the only child. My mother-in-law is right now in Romania by herself, and my parents there taking care of my mother-in-law. Our plan is to bring them here, and our neighbors met them, not neighbors from those are parents that they came and they went back and they came, and that's my genuine decision to have them here living with me. And I don't want to go and buy another house which will accommodate for that. I want to stay on the street because I've been living here since 2005, and my kids are going to this school, and I have my friends on this street. So this is the street that I want to live in if it's possible, of course.
So can you clarify then something?
Yeah.
At that residence, at that address, how long have you lived there?
Where, at 4-Child Drive?
4-Child?
Yeah.
5-Child Drive.
Oh, 5-Child Drive. We bought
the one that we're talking about here today.
Oh, this one we just bought it from our neighbors, friends. It was a private sale, and they knew that we wanted a car with double. We wanted a house with the 2 double car garage, because when we did the renovation, yes.
So that's part of, and I know there was a lot of breaks in what I was saying, so I'll sort of put it all together again. So to Mr. Recanelli's comment and to my comment in terms of minor variances are not supposed to be taken so lightly, we need to abide by them and come to the committee when necessary or when it's more logical. And then the idea of picking the right house. I'm in Aurora. I'm in this house right now because I had certain criteria that I wanted. I have a 2-car garage, but my neighborhood isn't as pretty as yours. But I had to decide between that pretty neighborhood and the family and the necessities that I had. So I made those decisions, and I did not come, and I'm not trying to boast my thoughts being better than anybody else's. I'm just trying to put everything into context. I made certain decisions, and there's nothing wrong with growing a house. I am not against growing a house. As you'll see from the rest of our day here today, or our evening here today, we're not against, at least I'm not against growing homes. What I'm against is when there's a series of minor variances that pushes the envelope, that makes it difficult for neighbors to adjust to do the same thing as what you're requesting, and to create something completely different, which just doesn't fit right. And you are close, but to me, you're not there. You're close, but you're not there. And the more we talk about it, and please, sorry, I don't mean to be in a negotiation. I'm just giving my points.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to point out to you that right now the house as it is, it has a 2-car garage. Yes. Mm-hmm. So we have a 2-car garage.
But then you're adding a family on top of it. And that's bringing it together.
We are not changing we are bringing the 2-car garage to the face because it makes more sense, I would say, because you don't want all that waste of space there. And then makes more sense to have the kitchen. Right now it's in the middle of the house, and I lived with the kitchen in the middle of the house, and I know what it is, and we are bringing the kitchen at the back, and we are retracting the rear wall towards the front of the house. So the backyard, it's bigger, and it's not affecting because when you stay in the backyard, you want to have as much as you can have.
I still need to think a little bit. Maybe I have seconds, maybe I have days, maybe I have seconds to think about it. I don't know. It just, to me, there's a lot here on the table. There's a lot in here in this document. And yes, there is a 2-car garage and you're trying to move it forward in order to have more space. That's an option. Maybe another option, a little smaller, 1.5. I'm not saying that's the recommendation. I'm just trying to show the thought process and what's going on in my head, and can we meet the minor variances as they're outlined with some considerations. So,
and now, sorry, I interrupted you, but something else is going on in my head. And since
please,
we are already past 10, so we are just, throwing out ideas. I was thinking, like, we have the 2-car garage, we have it at the front, like we move it at the front, and we can adjust the rest, because at the end of the day, the 2-car garage, the double-car garage is something that it was a deciding factor in buying the house and and that's something that we would like to have, if possible. So one idea is, if we have to have this, and to everything that, can you help me? That starts, because you are the engineer, I'm not the best. Everything that it is after the garage, we can retract the wall and make it smaller. Like that's.
So there's a lot, and I like that. And to Mr. Sorry, I keep having to go. I'm horrible with Italian names, even though I'm
Racanelli.
Racanelli. And I can see that there's those, and I'll repeat what I said: close, very close. Just to me, not there yet. But so I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything, and I think I've said my piece. And I see other hands, so I'll give my time up. And it is getting a little late, so I'll give my time up to my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the family.
Thank you, Daniel. I think Mr. Racanelli had made a suggestion, and I believe he conferred with his clients that he would like to make a request to defer so that he can take another look at this and bring it back to the committee if it's required. But I think the idea is to look at what you can do, Mr. Racanelli. Maintain the garage, do the double garage as your client wants, but maybe pull it in, maybe reconfigure where the entrance is. I think because unfortunately, guys, I've got all the plans here in front of me from the actual initial request for review. I think there's a lot they can do. I think perhaps with all of the comments that we've all made, with the concerns that have been expressed, with the information that we've received from the Ratepayers Association and the neighbor, which I really appreciated, we can look at and honor the request to defer to a future meeting of the committee if it's required. And I'm looking at Mr. Racanelli shaking his head in a positive way. So, Mr. Racanelli, is it your recommendation to the committee that we defer?
Yes, so we can redesign and we'll come back with a more favorable design.
Thank you. So I'll need a motion based on the request from the applicant to defer to a future meeting. Daniel?
Thank you. Through the chair, I move that we defer minor variance MV 21-20.
2021-20.
I thank you very much. That we defer minor variance MV 2021-20 to a later date.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? A second by Linda. I'll call the question. All in favor of the deferral? And that carries unanimously. So I want to thank Mr. Racanelli and the owners for their input to this stage. And I also want to thank you for your patience, because you've been very patient watching us go through other applications this evening. So I want to thank you for your patience. I am going to move on in the agenda then to new business. Is there any new business arising from members of the committee or from staff? David.
So for me, it's just a suggestion. I'm not sure whether this could be just among the members and town staff, or the others. I'm not sure. It was just I was going to suggest, because I'm seeing that it takes us a little bit longer to review these applications. So I was going to suggest, I know even for you, the chair, looking at your voice, reading, a lot of longs, these reports, takes all your energy and maybe even your throat getting dry and other stuff. So I was only to suggest, and this is, I'll be honest, it comes also from my past experience in, looking at different committee of adjustments and so on. I was going to suggest, and it's not the first time having seen it. If you are, those who have been in the community adjustment, whether it's here or other municipalities, they would see that I'm not suggesting anything new, but it's just for this time here. I was going to suggest that when you are reading reports, you are reading the file. Let's say this one here. You would read the application, this first part, the subheading. You don't read the background information, but we expect everybody to have read that. And then if at all you read the planning comments, and the planning comments for, let's say for minor variance, for each requirement, you only read the conclusion from the planner, like this planning staff approve this, and so on. And then you go to the next one, which you may go in detail, where you read the comments from other departments, and you could brief it, so-and-so objects, or so-and-so they are asking for conditions. And so on. And then you go to the end and you just say there are 3 conditions in this report. And that way, because people expect to have read this, even the people who are coming to ask questions or objecting or supporting, because they know about the file, they know everything already. So by going through reading almost most of this, only 90% is just like repeating the same things, rather than saying just at the beginning what the application is. You read all those variances, for example, in full, and then you go to the 4 tests, you just indicate the conclusions from the planners, and then you look at the comments for individual, agencies or departments, you could read those, and then you go at the end, the conclusion of the planning staff that, oh yeah, they wanted support, and then later on say, okay, there are 4 or 5 conditions which come with this approval. And then after that, you ask the owners if they have questions or they want to say something and so on. The other part is same normal. You ask them and so on, and then members ask questions. But it's only that part, first part, which I see you go a lot into the background and you read all that, and I feel bad seeing you reading and I say, oh my God, you need to see a glass of water and so on. So it's just a suggestion I'm having. Thank you.
David, I appreciate your concern for my voice and the time. The question for me, and you will know this from the previous Committee of Adjustment, what we had typically done is only read the comments from other departments. And yes, members of the committee would have read the staff report. They would have seen where the planning staff are in agreement, some of the background information in some of these. Because we're doing it on Zoom and it's virtual, I want to make sure that that there's enough in the record in the event that, for example, somebody appeals. I know that what I'm saying isn't part of the minutes, the actual minutes of the meetings. The chair provided a summary of the application. That's all we see in the minutes. In a lot of these cases, I'm actually doing it in order to make sure that we cover it off for the public. I know that in the past, in live meetings, we didn't do it as much. It was only the comments from other departments that we were covering off. And it's something that I started doing because I thought there was enough, even in the planning reports, that it was worth mentioning, particularly where staff may not agree with certain things. I thought that was important. I think I could probably, trim that down. There's no question. And it's really me just trying to make sure that, like, as I said, people who are watching this on Zoom, I don't know how many do, or that people, after a decision is made, they want to go back and they want to say, well, what was their basis for that? And what actually was said? Was it covered off adequately, even though it's electronic? So, you folks can tell me what you prefer, and staff, I'm certainly open to your suggestions as well. But I don't mind doing it. I know that most of the discussion tonight was an interaction between the members of the committee and the applicants. And you'll notice I try and get through my part as fast as I can read. And it's highlighted areas, and that's essentially how I approach it. So any comments from staff or any comments from anybody else, I'm more than happy.
I'll jump in, Tom, if that's okay.
Sure.
David, thank you for the comments. I do agree. I think there is some opportunity to kind of improve the timing of our meetings, especially, as we have some agendas that are a little bit more full than others. But I leave it it's really up to you and the committee and how you want to address the meeting. But yeah, I do certainly think that there is an opportunity to trim it down a bit and maybe just keep to the highlights, the key points. And, maybe it's not a one size fits all, right, for every application. Maybe for more of the complicated applications, we can kind of take some more time with them, and maybe for the more straightforward ones, you can kind of take a more condensed approach. But certainly something we can discuss in the future or if we're moving forward, if you'd like.
Sounds good, Anna. I appreciate that. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment at this point in time. We can certainly take it offline and see what the other members of the committee feel. David, sure.
So through the chair again, I just wanted to elaborate that the discussion part, that one is always good, it's interesting, and we shouldn't cut. That will depend on the flow of the questions from the staff, from the committee members, staff answering, or the applicants answering. That one we shouldn't limit. That one will be the way it is, because it depends on what questions we have and what answers they provide. So that part, I just wanted to explain that part. I'm not worried, not saying we should cut. That part should be the way it is, because it's the actual record of from the questions we ask, it demonstrates what are our concerns. And again, we give the opportunity to the public, we give opportunity to the applicant to answer those questions. And even for staff to even explain, that part is very good. So the part, that's how I just want to emphasize, the only part I'm talking about is that background information. The first part, like you have application, yes, you have to read all the variances, whether 10, 11, you have to read each one of them so that everybody understands. But it's the background part, that background part where we cut, then we go into the planning comments. And in planning comments, we sort of mention the highlights in terms of the conclusions from the planning staff. And then we go to those individual agencies. There again, we can read those completed the way they are. And then later on, the conditions and so on. So it's only the background part I'm looking at. And look at let's say the consent application we have today. It has a very long background. And of course, the chair, spend a lot of time reading all that to make sure people understand. But when I look back, I said, definitely people have read this, they know about this. Okay, so maybe it's a way of you can reduce the time spent because you are basically, you know, you are reading things which people basically they know already about the background. But I understand from your point of view that, you know, in terms of being on the record as we're now doing virtually. So I just wanted to mention the part where we start at, you give the opportunity to the owner to explain the application, to the public to ask questions, for the committee members to ask questions, for the town staff to answer. That is a good, that part, that shouldn't be cut. That should be the way it is, depending on the flow of the application at that particular time.
Thanks, David. Okay. So with that, any other new business that we want to bring forward at this point? Terrific. I'll ask for a motion then to adjourn. Steve, thank you very much. And all in favor of adjourning? And we are adjourned. Thank you very much. And we can hold record as we are